Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 unlocked all 1,912 aliens. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Infinite Possibilities. The familiar green flash lit up the abandoned warehouse as Ben Tennyson transformed back into his human form, dusting off his hands with a satisfied grin. 3 unconscious Forever Knights lay scattered across the floor amid the wreckage of their illegal weapons cache. And that's why you don't mess with Humongosaur, Ben said to no one in particular, checking his watch. 7 minutes flat. New record. He tapped his communicator. Rook, Forever Knights are down and their little toy collection is busted. Pretty standard stuff. Excellent work, Ben dude, Rook's voice crackled through the device. Though I still do not understand why you insist on timing these encounters. It's called efficiency, Ben replied, walking toward the exit. Plus, I was missing the Sumo Slammers marathon. If I hurry, I can still catch the Omnitrix suddenly pulsed with an intense green glow, interrupting Ben mid-sentence. The device had never lit up like this before, not just the faceplate but the entire band radiating energy. Rook? Something weird's happening with the Omnitrix. Define weird, please. Like, glowing brighter than a lighthouse weird. Ben lifted his wrist, examining the device. I didn't touch anything, I swear. The warehouse air shimmered as if affected by intense heat, and a figure materialized before Ben. It wasn't quite solid, more like a collection of swirling energies that vaguely formed a humanoid shape. Brilliant white at its core with tendrils of cosmic blue and violet energy spiraling outward, the entity hovered several inches above the ground. Benjamin Tennyson, the figure spoke, its voice resonating from everywhere and nowhere at once. I am the catalyst. Ben immediately dropped into a defensive stance. Let me guess, you're here to steal the Omnitrix, destroy Earth, or both. Get in line, buddy. The catalyst made a sound that might have been laughter. I am neither thief nor destroyer. I am an observer. A tester. A catalyst for potential. Okay, so you're cryptic. That's refreshing. Ben's hand hovered over the Omnitrix. What do you want? The question is what do you want, wielder of the Omnitrix? The entity drifted closer. You have carried immense potential for years, yet you've experienced only a fraction of what the universe offers. Ben. Rook's voice came through the communicator. Who are you speaking to? Your biometric readings are fluctuating. The catalyst extended what might have been an arm, pointing at the Omnitrix. The barriers are artificial. The limitations, unnecessary. Back off. Ben shouted, slapping his hand down on the Omnitrix. The familiar green flash enveloped him, transforming him into Diamond Head. Whatever you're planning, it stops now. Ben fired crystal shards at the entity, but they passed right through, embedding themselves in the far wall. Interesting choice, the catalyst remarked, unaffected. But what if you had every choice? The entity surged forward, engulfing Ben's crystalline form. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest glowed blindingly bright. Ben felt a rush of energy unlike anything he'd experienced before, not painful but overwhelming, like every cell in his body was being rewritten and expanded. What are you doing to me? Ben shouted, his voice distorting as Diamond Head's form began to shift and change. Unlocking potential. Removing barriers. The catalyst's voice echoed through Ben's mind. Every species, every combination, every possibility, now within your grasp. Use this gift wisely, Ben Tennyson. The universe will be watching. The light intensified until Ben couldn't see anything. He felt his body cycling rapidly through transformations, fur, scales, fire, ice, stone, gas. Too fast to comprehend. His consciousness stretched, compressed, expanded in ways he couldn't understand. When the light finally faded, Ben found himself on his knees, back in human form, gasping for breath. The warehouse was empty. No sign of the catalyst. Ben! Ben! Rook's voice was practically shouting from the communicator. I am en route to your location. What happened? Ben stared at the Omnitrix. It looked the same, but somehow, different. The energy signature pulsed stronger, the green glow slightly more intense. I'm not sure, Ben replied, slowly standing up. Some entity called the Catalyst showed up, babbled about potential, and did something to the Omnitrix. Are you injured? Is the device malfunctioning? I don't think so. Ben examined the watch closely. It feels different though. Like it's more. As if responding to his words, the Omnitrix interface suddenly lit up, projecting a holographic display Ben had never seen before. A scrolling list of alien names, thousands of them, flashed by too quickly to read. DNA catalog expanded, announced the Omnitrix in Azmatha's voice. Access granted to full genetic library. 1,912 transformations available. Ben's jaw dropped. Did you just say, 1 million? Affirmative. Initializing new user interface to accommodate expanded options. The holographic display reorganized, showing categories, subcategories, and search functions that hadn't existed before. Ben. Rook's voice came through again. What is happening? A grin slowly spread across Ben's face. Dude, you're not going to believe this, but I think I just got the ultimate upgrade. Rook's Proto-TRUK screeched to a halt outside Plumber headquarters as Ben excitedly paced back and forth, examining the Omnitrix's new interface. So this catalyst just appeared, touched the Omnitrix, and vanished? Rook asked, climbing out of the vehicle with his proto-tool at the ready. Pretty much, Ben replied, not looking up from the scrolling display. Look at this. There's a search function now. I can sort by planet of origin, physical attributes, special abilities. Dude, there's aliens here I've never even heard of. Ben, perhaps we should approach this with caution, Rook suggested, looking concerned. Unknown entities modifying the Omnitrix without Azmatha's knowledge has historically led to problematic outcomes. Come on, Rook. Where's your sense of adventure? Ben scrolled faster through the alien catalog. Look, there's a species here that can manipulate gravity. And one that exists in 4 dimensions at once. How cool is that? Exceedingly cool, I admit, Rook conceded, but still potentially dangerous. We should contact Azmath immediately. After I try just one, Ben insisted, eyes gleaming with excitement. Just to make sure everything's working properly. Before Rook could protest further, Ben selected an unfamiliar alien and slammed down on the Omnitrix. The green flash enveloped him, and where Ben had stood a moment before now hovered a being that looked like living aurora borealis, a swirling, shimmering form of energy in brilliant greens and blues. Whoa! Ben's voice had a strange echoing quality. Check me out. I'm like, pure energy. Fascinating, Rook admitted, scanning Ben with his proto-tool. According to my readings, you're emitting a form of cosmic radiation unknown on Earth. Ben drifted higher, his form rippling and flowing. I can feel everything. Electrical currents, radio waves, cosmic radiation. He extended what might have been an arm, and a nearby streetlight brightened, then exploded in a shower of sparks. Oops. Still figuring out the controls. Ben, perhaps you should transform back until we better understand. Ben wasn't listening. The sensation was intoxicating, awareness extended beyond anything he'd experienced before. He could feel the electrical impulses in Rook's brain, the communication signals bouncing between satellites overhead, the subtle radiation from distant stars. I think I'll call this one Wavelength. Ben announced, performing loops in the air. Man, this is incredible. And there's over 1 million more to try. Suddenly, the Omnitrix symbol on what passed for Ben's chest began to pulse rapidly. His energy form destabilized, flickering like a bad television signal. Rook? Something's happening, a flash of green, and Ben transformed again, without touching the Omnitrix. This time he became a massive creature with thick, rock-like skin covered in volcanic vents that spewed smoke and embers. What the? I didn't do this. Ben's new voice rumbled like an avalanche, his body radiating intense heat that immediately began melting the asphalt beneath his feet. Ben, your transformation appears unstable. Rook backed away from the heat, raising his arm to shield his face. You think? Ben tried to touch the Omnitrix symbol to change back, but his massive, molten fingers couldn't reach it. It's switching on its own. Another flash, and Ben transformed again, this time into something small and gelatinous that immediately began dissolving the ground beneath him. Oh crud! Ben's voice now sounded like bubbling liquid. Rook, help! Flash! A winged insectoid that immediately took flight, crashing into the side of the building as Ben struggled to control unfamiliar wings. Flash! A crystalline being that refracted light in blinding patterns, temporarily disorienting both Ben and Rook. Flash! A gaseous form that started to disperse on the wind before Ben concentrated enough to maintain cohesion. The Omnitrix appears to be cycling through transformations randomly. Rook called out, trying to track Ben's constantly changing position. Perhaps the influx of new DNA samples has overwhelmed its systems. Flash! Ben transformed into something that looked like a walking tree with glowing symbols carved into its bark. I can't stop it, he shouted, his voice now deep and resonant. It's like when I was a kid and the watch was malfunctioning, except way worse. Try to focus on returning to human form. Rook suggested. Concentrate on your human DNA signature. I'm trying. Flash. A serpentine creature with multiple heads, each speaking with different voices. Flash. Something that seemed to exist partly in another dimension, with portions of Ben's body disappearing and reappearing. Flash. A being made of what looked like living metal, body instantly conforming to the shape of a nearby car. This is bad, all the metal surfaces of Ben's new form spoke simultaneously. Really Flash. Suddenly Ben was Humongousaur, a familiar form at last. Finally. Something I know how to, Flash. A tiny glowing speck that darted around frantically. Benjamin Tennyson. The commanding voice cut through the chaos. A flash of teleportation energy revealed Azimuth standing on a nearby railing, arms crossed and expression severe. What have you done to my Omnitrix this time? The Galvan demanded. Another flash, and Ben returned to human form, collapsing to his knees, sweating and gasping for breath. Not my fault, this time. He panted. Entity, called the Catalyst. Azimuth hopped down, approaching the Omnitrix with a scowl. Hold still. He touched the device, interfacing directly with its systems. His eyes widened. Impossible. What is it, First Thinker? Rook asked, helping Ben to his feet. The Omnitrix's genetic locks have been completely removed, Azimuth explained, disbelief evident in his voice. Every DNA sample in the codon stream, the complete catalog of every sentient species in the known universe, has been made available for transformation. That's what the Catalyst said, Ben confirmed, still catching his breath. Something about removing barriers and unlocking potential. This is unprecedented, Azimuth muttered, manipulating the Omnitrix's interface. The Omnitrix was never designed to allow access to all transformations at once. The mental strain alone could be catastrophic. Hey, I handled 10 aliens when I was 10 years old, Ben protested. I've got way more experience now. Experience with 40 or 50 aliens, perhaps, Azimuth countered sharply. Not with over 1 million. The psychological impact of cycling through thousands of different neurological systems could permanently damage your human mind. So fix it, Ben suggested. Put some of the locks back or something. Asmith's frown deepened as he continued examining the Omnitrix. I cannot. Whatever this catalyst did, it fundamentally rewrote the core programming of the Omnitrix. Attempting to reverse it without fully understanding the changes could cause a catastrophic malfunction. So I'm stuck with access to 1,000,000 aliens that might randomly activate at any moment? Ben asked incredulously. For the time being, yes, Asmith confirmed. I can implement a temporary stabilization protocol to prevent random transformations, but it will take time to develop a more permanent solution. As Asmith worked on the Omnitrix, Rook's badge suddenly beeped. We have an emergency alert, he announced, checking the display. Multiple unidentified spacecraft have entered Earth's atmosphere. They appear to be heading directly for Bellwood. Ben looked at Asmith. Coincidence? The universe rarely deals in coincidences, Ben Tennyson, the Galvan replied grimly. Whatever your mysterious catalyst has done to the Omnitrix has likely made you a beacon for every power-hungry entity in the galaxy. The ground shook as a distant explosion rocked downtown Bellwood. Smoke rose from several blocks away. Stabilization protocol engaged, Asmith announced, finishing his adjustments to the Omnitrix. This should prevent random transformations, but I strongly advise using only familiar aliens until I can properly analyze these changes. No promises, Ben replied, already activating the Omnitrix's dial. Rook, let's move. I shall return to my laboratory to begin work on a solution, Asmith said, tapping a teleporter on his belt. Try not to destroy the planet while I'm gone. In a flash of light, he disappeared. Ben scrolled through the alien selection, overwhelmed by the choices before settling on a familiar silhouette. Let's start with the classics. It's hero time. He slapped down the dial, transforming into XLR-8. Race you there, he called to Rook before disappearing in a blur of speed. Downtown Bellwood was in chaos. 3 sleek, gunmetal gray ships hovered above the city, each about the size of a football field. Smaller craft darted from them, firing precision beams that seemed designed to incapacitate rather than destroy. Ben skidded to a halt beside a overturned bus, helping the last passengers escape before looking skyward. What are they doing? The answer came when one of the beams struck a fleeing civilian. Instead of causing injury, it enveloped them in a containment field that rapidly lifted toward one of the waiting ships. They're taking people. Ben realized, immediately dashing to intercept another beam aimed at a young woman. Using XLR-8 speed, he pushed her out of the way just in time. Thanks, Ben 10, she gasped, eyes wide with fear. Get to the subway tunnels, Ben instructed. Spread the word for everyone to take shelter underground. Rook's Proto-TRUK arrived, transforming into battle mode as it touched down. Ben. I am detecting unusual scanning patterns from those ships. They appear to be searching for specific biological signatures. Ben dodged another containment beam. They're definitely picking targets. Not just random abductions. The Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest suddenly began flashing yellow. Warning, long-range biological scan detected, the device announced. Scan targeting Omnitrix DNA repository. That can't be good, Ben muttered. The attack pattern of the ships immediately changed. All 3 larger vessels rotated toward Ben's position, and the smaller craft converged on his location. I think they found what they were looking for, Ben called to Rook. And it's me. A voice boomed from the largest ship, broadcasting across the city. Attention Earth vessel designate Omnitrix. You have been selected for collection. Resistance is futile but expected. Damage to the device will be minimized. Collection? Ben repeated incredulously. I'm not some trading card you can just add to your set. Ben Tennyson, Rook called, firing his proto-tool at approaching craft. I believe these may be the Harvesters. The who? A notoriously secretive species obsessed with collecting genetic samples from across the galaxy, Rook explained, diving behind cover as energy blasts pockmarked the street. They are believed to maintain vast repositories of DNA, but they've never been known to pursue specimens so openly. Until now, Ben realized. The Omnitrix just became the ultimate genetic jackpot. A particularly large beam from the main ship struck nearby, carving a perfect circle in the street. From the opening rose a figure in gleaming armor, humanoid but tall and thin, with 4 arms and an elongated head. The helmet retracted, revealing pale blue skin, pupilless silver eyes, and no visible mouth. Ben Tennyson, the figure spoke, voice resonating directly in Ben's mind through some form of telepathy. I am Collector Prime Vex. Your cooperation will make this process more efficient. Sorry, not interested in being part of your collection, Ben replied, tapping the Omnitrix symbol to transform. In a flash, he became Humongousaur, growing to his full 30 feet of height. How about you take your ships and leave before things get messy? Vex seemed unimpressed. Your current form, Vaxasaurian DNA. Common and unrefined. We already possess multiple samples. The Harvester lifted one hand, and a holographic display appeared. However, our scans indicate your Omnitrix now contains all known sentient DNA profiles in the galaxy. Most intriguing. Ben slammed his fist down, but Vex moved with surprising speed, dodging the attack effortlessly. The Harvester touched a control on his armor, and a blade of energy formed around his lower right arm. The device can be removed with the bearer, or without, Vex stated calmly. Your preference? How about neither? Ben charged forward, but the Harvester moved with impossible agility, slashing across Ben's arm with the energy blade. Pain shot through Ben's massive form, but more alarming was the sensation of something extracting information directly from the wound. The cut glowed briefly, and a small sample of tissue vanished into Vex's armor. Vaxasaurian genetic sample acquired, Vex announced dispassionately. Moving to secondary targets. Oh no you don't. Ben reached for the Omnitrix symbol, intending to switch to a faster alien, but hesitated with his hand hovering over it. So many choices, too many. For a critical second, he froze, overwhelmed by possibilities. Vex struck again, this time drawing blood from Ben's leg. Your indecision is inefficient. Surrender the Omnitrix and your suffering will be minimized. The Harvester's words snapped Ben back to focus. He slammed the Omnitrix symbol, intentionally thinking of Diamondhead, but the flash of transformation revealed something unexpected. Ben had become a crystalline being, but not Diamondhead. This alien was taller, with more complex crystal formations and constantly shifting geometric patterns across its surface. Energy pulsed through internal lattices, and when Ben spoke, his voice resonated with harmonic overtones. What the? This isn't Diamondhead. Fascinating, Vex observed. A Petrosapien variant? No, a hybrid form. Ben looked at his hands in confusion. The crystalline structure was familiar but different, with greater complexity and strange energy flows he could somehow control instinctively. When he concentrated, the crystals resharpened into weapons more precise than anything Diamondhead could form. I didn't select a hybrid, Ben muttered, before realization struck. Unless, the Omnitrix is combining DNA patterns now. He didn't have time to contemplate further as Vex launched another attack. Acting on instinct, Ben raised his hand, and a crystal barrier formed, but unlike Diamondhead's typical shields, this one generated an energy field that not only blocked Vex's blade but repelled it with force. Unknown species detected, Vex announced, adjusting something on his armor. Priority collection target. Above, the Harvester ships intensified their attack, focusing firepower on Ben's position while continuing to collect civilians with capture beams. Rook. Ben called out, deflecting an energy blast. We need to take out those tractor beams. I cannot reach them from ground level. Rook replied, using his Proto-Tools grapple to rescue a civilian from a capture beam. Ben looked at his crystalline hands again, feeling the strange energy flowing through them. On instinct, he focused that energy downward and suddenly propelled upward on a pillar of crystalline energy. Whoa! Hovering 20 feet above the ground, Ben realized this hybrid form could fly by manipulating crystalline energy. Oh, this is definitely an upgrade from Diamond Head. He rocketed toward the nearest harvester ship, forming crystal spikes on his fists as he approached the tractor beam emitter. With a powerful strike, he shattered the device, causing the ship to wobble unsteadily. Target is displaying unknown abilities, Vex's voice came over the ship's communication system. Adjust collection parameters. The hybrid forms are of greater interest than anticipated. The ship shifted formation, surrounding Ben in midair. Dozens of weapons locked onto his position. Yeah, I'm getting tired of being called a specimen, Ben muttered. He touched the Omnitrix symbol again, intentionally thinking of combining Heat Blast and XLR-8. The green flash faded to reveal a streamlined form wreathed in blue-white flames, with aerodynamic fins and a body built for speed. Heat shimmered around him as he cut through the air faster than any of his previous forms. Oh yeah! Ben shouted, his voice crackling with energy. Let's call this one Velocity Blaze. He shot between the harvester ships, leaving trails of superheated air that disrupted their stabilization systems. As he moved, he could feel the unique combination of powers, Heat Blast's flame generation but channeled through XLR-8 speed physiology, creating something entirely new. The flames around his body intensified as he accelerated, eventually creating a burning contrail as he circled the largest ship. The heat began to warp the hull plating. Stop him! Vex commanded. The specimen is damaging Collection Vessel Alpha. Defense turrets tracked Ben, but his new form moved too erratically and quickly for them to lock on. With each pass around the ship, he generated more heat, until portions of the hull began to glow cherry red. Rook! Ben called through his communicator. Can you target the other ship's propulsion systems? Affirmative, Rook replied, adjusting his proto-tool to sniper configuration. With precision shots, he disabled the stabilizers on the two smaller vessels, causing them to list dangerously. Ben continued accelerating, pushing his new form to its limits. The friction of his passage through air generated even more intense heat, until he was surrounded by a miniature inferno. With a final burst of speed, he shot straight through one of the damaged ships, melting a clean hole through its core systems. The effect was immediate, emergency protocols engaged, and the ship began a controlled descent to minimize damage. One down. Ben shouted triumphantly. The largest ship suddenly emitted a pulse of energy that caught Ben mid-flight, disrupting his momentum and sending him tumbling through the air. He crashed into the side of a building, leaving a smoldering impact crater. Okay, that hurt, Ben groaned, pulling himself from the wreckage. Vex appeared, rising up on a platform from the main ship. Impressive display, Ben Tennyson. The hybrid forms exceed our predictive models. You will make an exceptional addition to the repository. Not happening, Ben retorted, touching the Omnitrix again. This time he deliberately thought of Big Chill and Gravitac, hoping for another useful combination. The transformation resulted in a ghostly, nebulous being with a core of concentrated gravity. Stars and cosmic dust swirled within Ben's now semi-transparent form, and small objects began orbiting around him spontaneously. Collection teams, converge, Vex commanded. Maximum containment protocols. Ben felt his new powers instinctively. This form combined Big Chill's intangibility with Gravitac's gravity manipulation, but the result was something far more potent. He could alter the gravitational constant in localized areas while remaining untouchable. As harvester troops surrounded him, Ben extended his hands, creating a gravity well that pulled their weapons from their grasps. With another gesture, he inverted the field, sending the troops themselves flying backward. I think I'll call this one Phantom Mass, Ben declared, rising into the air as his body distorted the space around it. Vex analyzed the new form from a distance. The combined DNA creates exponentially more valuable specimens. All collection resources, focus on the Omnitrix bearer. The main ship positioned itself directly above Ben, its central bay opening to reveal a massive containment device. Energy fields began forming, attempting to create an inescapable prison. Ben phased through the first barrier easily, but the harvesters adjusted quickly, creating layers of different energy types. One of them caught him, sending painful shocks through his nebulous form. Ag. Ben struggled against the containment field. Can't go intangible through this one. Below, Rook worked frantically to free captured civilians while maintaining communications with Plumber HQ. We need reinforcements immediately. Ben is being overwhelmed. Ben fought against the energy net as it slowly contracted around him, pulling him toward the waiting ship. Need something stronger, he gasped, reaching for the Omnitrix symbol again. This time, he didn't consciously choose anything specific, just the need for raw power. The Omnitrix seemed to respond to his desperation, cycling through combinations rapidly before settling on a blinding transformation. When the green light faded, Ben had become a towering figure of pure cosmic energy, reminiscent of NRG but mixed with Automix and something else entirely. Planets and stars orbited within his form, and each step left burning footprints in the air itself. The containment field shattered instantly as waves of radiation poured from Ben's new form. Even Vex retreated, his sensors overloading. Warning. Energy levels exceeding containment parameters, the Harvester called to his ships. Adjust collection approach. Ben looked down at himself in awe. Power unlike anything he'd felt before coursed through him. He could sense atomic structures, could manipulate energy at its most fundamental level. When he spoke, his voice carried the echo of cosmic events. I am celestial force. He raised one hand, and a miniature star formed above his palm, pulsing with controlled nuclear fusion. With a casual flick, he sent it toward one of the Harvester ships. The projectile struck the vessel's shield, overwhelming it instantly and melting through the hull like paper. Ben. Rook called out, concerned. Your radiation levels are off the charts. You need to control that form. Ben barely heard him, intoxicated by the power flowing through him. He could feel the building blocks of reality at his fingertips, could sense the invisible forces holding matter together. For a moment, he wasn't Ben Tennyson anymore. He was something vaster, more primordial. A small part of his consciousness recognized the danger. This form was affecting his mind, making him think like the cosmic entities whose DNA contributed to it. With tremendous effort, he focused on his human identity. Need to stay in control, he managed, forcing himself to remember who he was. Need to stop the Harvesters without destroying the city. Vex observed from a distance, fascination overriding caution. The Omnitrix bearer maintains partial consciousness control despite Class 9 energy transformation. Unprecedented. Recalibrate collection parameters to. He never finished the sentence as Ben directed a controlled energy wave at the Harvester command platform, shorting out its systems. Vex armor locked up, immobilizing him mid-gesture. Your collection just got cancelled, Ben declared, focusing his cosmic awareness on the Harvester ships. He could perceive their internal systems, could see the captured humans held in stasis fields. With careful precision belying the tremendous power at his disposal, he extended his influence into the vessel's computers. One by one, the stasis fields deactivated, and teleportation systems engaged, returning the captured civilians safely to the ground. Emergency sirens blared throughout the Harvester fleet. Repository compromise imminent, came automated announcements from the ships. Initiating emergency departure protocols. The two undamaged ships began to ascend, abandoning their damaged counterpart. Vex, still immobilized, was teleported away just before Ben could capture him. They're getting away. Rook called out. Not all of them, Ben replied, his cosmic voice resonating across the city. He extended his awareness to the damaged ship that had crashed, ensuring its weapons systems were completely deactivated before allowing himself to descend to street level. As his feet touched the ground, he felt the enormous strain this form was putting on both the Omnitrix and his human consciousness. Reluctantly, he touched the symbol on his chest, transforming back to human with a flash of green light. The moment he returned to human form, Ben collapsed to his knees, exhausted beyond anything he'd ever experienced. His mind reeled with afterimages of cosmic awareness, his body trembling from the strain. Ben! Rook rushed to his side, supporting him. Are you injured? Not exactly, Ben managed, his voice hoarse. That last form, it was like being plugged into the universe itself. Too much for my brain to handle. Police and plumber emergency response teams converged on the area, securing the crashed harvester ship and assisting civilians. In the distance, the retreating harvester vessels vanished into the upper atmosphere. They'll be back, Ben said, slowly regaining his strength. They want the Omnitrix more than ever now. Rook nodded grimly. The hybrid forms you displayed would be immensely valuable to collectors of genetic material. You've become the most sought-after prize in the galaxy. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, which pulsed with steady green light, seemingly unaffected by the tremendous energies it had just channeled. 1,000,000 aliens was impressive enough, he said quietly. But the combinations, that's basically infinite possibilities. Which makes you infinitely valuable to beings like the Harvesters, Rook pointed out. And infinitely dangerous to those who fear such power. Ben stood up, steadier now. We need to get back to Plumber HQ. I have a feeling this is just the beginning. As they made their way through the damaged streets, Ben couldn't help scrolling through the Omnitrix's alien catalog again, mind racing with potential combinations. The power was exhilarating, but he could already feel it changing him, each new transformation leaving echoes in his consciousness, alien perspectives lingering in the back of his mind. Rook, he said suddenly, do you think the Catalyst knew this would happen? That unlocking all these aliens would make me a target? Perhaps that was part of the test it mentioned, Rook suggested. To see how you handle not just the power, but the consequences of possessing it. Ben nodded slowly. Well, if that's the game, I'm not backing down. Whatever comes next, I'll handle it. He looked at the Omnitrix, its green glow reflecting in his eyes. 1,000,000 aliens, and I'm just getting started. 3 days after the Harvester attack, Ben sat in his room, staring at the ceiling. Sleep had become difficult. Every time he closed his eyes, his mind filled with alien perspectives, fragments of consciousness from the new forms he'd tried. Especially the hybrid ones, which seemed to create entirely new minds rather than just combining existing alien thoughts. His phone buzzed for the dozenth time. Gwen had been trying to reach him since hearing about the incident. Finally, he picked up. Hey, dweeb, he said, trying to sound normal despite his exhaustion. Ben. Why haven't you been answering? I've been worried sick. Gwen's concerned voice came through the speaker. Kevin and I just got back from our field trip to the Null Void outposts. Grandpa Max filled us in on what happened. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, Ben replied automatically. Just tired. Been a crazy few days. 1,000,000 aliens, Ben. That's... I can't even imagine. Yeah, well, neither could I until it happened. Ben sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. It's not just the number. It's the combinations. The Omnitrix is mixing alien DNA now, creating hybrids I've never seen before. There was a pause before Gwen spoke again, her voice more tentative. And how are you handling it? You sound different. Ben frowned. Different how? I don't know. Your speech patterns are more formal. And there's something in your voice. Ben hadn't noticed, but now that Gwen mentioned it, he realized he had been thinking and speaking differently. More. Precisely. With greater complexity. Like the alien intelligences were bleeding into his human mind. It's nothing, he insisted. Just tired from fighting off alien collectors and dealing with Asmatha's constant tests and scans. We're coming over, Gwen declared. Kevin's worried too, though he'd never admit it. "We'll be there in 20 minutes. Before Ben could protest, she hung up. He sighed, looking down at the Omnitrix. Despite Asmitha's warnings to stick with familiar aliens, he'd been experimenting, trying new forms in secret, testing combinations. Each one felt amazing in the moment, but left him more drained afterward, with alien thoughts lingering longer. The doorbell rang downstairs. Ben checked the time, only 10 minutes had passed. Gwen must have already been on her way when she called. He made his way down to find not just Gwen and Kevin, but Rook as well, all wearing expressions of poorly concealed concern. "Wow, the full welcome committee," Ben remarked dryly. "Should I be flattered or worried?" "Both," Kevin replied, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "You look like garbage, Tennyson." "Thanks. Always nice to see you too, Kevin." Gwen hugged him tightly, then pulled back to study his face. "You haven't been sleeping." "Alien invasions tend to disrupt my beauty rest," Ben deflected. "It is more than that," Rook observed. "Your neural patterns showed significant alterations after your use of the hybrid transformations. Asmitha's preliminary analysis indicated potential bleed-through of alien consciousness structures." Ben threw his hands up. "Great, so you've all been talking about me behind my back." "Fantastic." "We're worried, Ben," Gwen said softly. "This isn't like getting a few new aliens. This is your mind potentially being overwhelmed by a million different species thought patterns." Ben was about to respond when the Omnitrix suddenly lit up with an alert. "Unknown energy signature detected. Matched to previous encounter, entity designated the Catalyst." All four of them tensed, looking around the room. Kevin immediately absorbed the metal from a nearby lamp, coating his body in protective armor. "Where?" Ben demanded, activating the Omnitrix's holographic interface. "Show location." A map appeared above the device, indicating a point in the desert outside Bellwood, the same area where the null void projector had malfunctioned years ago, creating a temporary dimensional rift. "It's back," Ben said, a mix of anger and curiosity in his voice. "The thing that did this to me. We should approach with caution," Rook advised. "If this entity could modify the Omnitrix beyond even Asmitha's understanding, its capabilities are potentially unlimited." "Or it's a trap," Kevin suggested. "The harvesters could be using some kind of energy signature to lure you out." Ben shook his head. "No, it's the Catalyst. I can feel it somehow." He couldn't explain the strange certainty, but something in his modified connection to the Omnitrix gave him absolute confidence. "Then we go together," Gwen insisted. "All of us." Ben nodded, surprising them with his lack of argument. The old Ben might have rushed off alone, eager to confront the entity that had changed him. But the experiences of the past few days, the hybrid forms, the alien perspectives infiltrating his thoughts, had left him more cautious, more aware of his limitations despite his expanded powers. "Let's take the Proto-TRUK," he suggested. "And maybe bring some backup plumbers too." Kevin and Gwen exchanged glances, clearly surprised by his prudence. "Who are you and what have you done with Ben Tennyson?" Kevin asked, only half joking. The desert location was exactly as Ben remembered from years before, a flat expanse of sand and rock with unusual magnetic properties that had once facilitated a tear between dimensions. As Rook landed the Proto-TRUK, energy readings spiked on all their instruments. "Whatever's out there, it's putting out serious power," Gwen observed, her eyes glowing with mana as she scanned the area. "But it doesn't feel hostile." Two plumber vehicles took up positions at a safe distance, officers ready with containment equipment. Ben stepped out of the Proto-TRUK, eyes fixed on a point in the air where light seemed to bend and distort. "It's here," he said quietly. "Watching us." As if responding to his words, the distortion expanded, forming into the now familiar swirling energy form of the Catalyst. Its vaguely humanoid shape hovered above the desert floor, tendrils of cosmic energy spiraling outward. "Benjamin Tennyson, its resonant voice filled the air. You have begun to explore your expanded potential. Yeah, thanks for that, Ben replied, stepping forward while his friends flanked him protectively. You turned me into a walking target for every genetic collector and power-hungry tyrant in the galaxy. A predictable consequence, the Catalyst acknowledged, seeming untroubled. The greater the potential, the greater the forces drawn to it. Such is the nature of power. What do you want? Gwen demanded. Why did you do this to Ben? The entity's form shifted, colors swirling in complex patterns as it considered the question. I am an observer of potential. A catalyst for evolution. Throughout the cosmos, I identify nexus points, individuals or technologies capable of exponential growth, and remove artificial limitations. The Omnitrix was designed with those limitations for a reason, Ben pointed out. Azimuth isn't exactly an idiot when it comes to designing failsafes. Azimuth of Galvan Prime, the Catalyst's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. A brilliant mind, but constrained by caution. He created a tool of unprecedented potential, then hobbled it out of fear. Kevin stepped forward, metal-covered fists clenched. And you think you know better? Ben's mind is being affected by all these alien forms. He's not sleeping, he's talking differently, he's evolving, the Catalyst interrupted. As intended. The human mind is remarkably adaptable, capable of integrating new perspectives while maintaining core identity. The discomfort is temporary, a necessary phase of growth. Ben felt a strange resonance with the entity's words. The alien thoughts that had been troubling him didn't feel so intrusive in the Catalyst's presence. Instead, they seemed to settle into patterns, organizing themselves rather than competing for attention. You're doing something to me right now, Ben realized. Stabilizing the alien consciousnesses somehow. Merely accelerating a natural process, the Catalyst confirmed. Your mind would eventually achieve this integration on its own, but with considerable discomfort. Rook's proto-tool remained trained on the entity. What is your true purpose with Ben? Why grant him access to all these transformations? The Catalyst's form expanded, encompassing a wider area as if to emphasize its points. The universe stands at a crossroads. Ancient forces stir. Boundaries between dimensions thin. In such times, catalysts must emerge, beings capable of adaptation on an unprecedented scale. So I'm your champion? Ben asked skeptically. Your weapon against these ancient forces? Not mine, the Catalyst corrected. Your own. I merely remove barriers, what you become is your choice entirely. Gwen's hands glowed with mana as she performed a complex analysis spell. It's telling the truth, at least as it understands truth, she reported. I'm not sensing deception. That doesn't make what it did right, Kevin insisted. Perhaps not by your limited perspective, the Catalyst replied without hostility. But necessity often transcends conventional morality. Ben studied the entity closely. Despite everything, the danger, the unwanted attention, the mental strain, he couldn't bring himself to hate the Catalyst. Some part of him, perhaps the alien perspectives now integrated into his consciousness, understood its actions on a level his human mind couldn't fully articulate. The Harvesters will be back, Ben said. And they probably won't be the only ones after me. Now. Correct, the Catalyst acknowledged. You have become the most valuable genetic repository in known space. Many will seek to possess your power. Others will attempt to destroy it out of fear. Great, Ben muttered. Just what I needed, more enemies. Also more potential allies, the entity countered. Power attracts opposition but also support. Those who recognize the necessity of adaptation will stand with you. A sudden alert from the plumber vehicles interrupted their conversation. One of the officers rushed over. Multiple spacecraft entering Earth's atmosphere, he reported urgently. Different configuration from the Harvesters, but they're heading straight for Bellwood. The Catalyst's form began to dissipate. The ripples of change spread quickly. Your first tests begin in earnest, Ben Tennyson. Remember, the power is not in the number of forms you possess, but in how you integrate them. Combination is more than addition, it is evolution. Wait. Ben called as the entity faded. What am I supposed to do about all this? How do I control 1,000,000 aliens? You already know, the catalyst's voice echoed as its physical presence vanished completely. Trust the connections forming in your mind. The Omnitrix responds to necessity as much as choice. As the last traces of the entity disappeared, Ben felt the temporary clarity it had provided beginning to fade. The alien perspective started to resurface in his consciousness, but differently now, less chaotic, more structured, as if the catalyst had helped his mind begin organizing them. That was spectacularly unhelpful, Kevin remarked. Actually, it wasn't, Ben replied thoughtfully. I think I understand something now. He looked down at the Omnitrix, seeing it with new clarity. The Omnitrix isn't just a tool for transformation, it's a connection point between consciousnesses. When I transform, I'm not just borrowing DNA, I'm experiencing another way of existing. Ben, we need to move, Rook interrupted, checking his communicator. The incoming ships will reach Bellwood in minutes. Ben nodded, already activating the Omnitrix. You guys get back to the city. I'll handle this. Absolutely not, Gwen objected. We stick together. For once I agree with your cousin, Kevin added. Whatever these new aliens are, we face them as a team. Ben smiled, genuinely touched by their loyalty. Fine. But I'm flying us there. He scrolled through the Omnitrix's display, but instead of selecting a single alien, he accessed a new interface the catalyst's presence had somehow made visible to him, a combination matrix. What are you doing? Rook asked, watching Ben manipulate holographic DNA strands. Testing a theory, Ben replied, selecting 3 different alien patterns and merging them in the display. If combination is evolution, let's see what happens when I deliberately mix compatible powers instead of letting the Omnitrix choose randomly. He slammed down the dial, and the green flash enveloped him. When it faded, Ben had transformed into something none of them had seen before, a sleek, aerodynamic being with elements of Jetray's speed, Big Chill's phasing abilities, and Astrodactyl's energy manipulation, all merged into a coherent whole. Whoa, Kevin breathed, genuinely impressed. That's new. Meet Phantom Comet, Ben announced, his voice carrying a strange harmonic quality. For energy wings extended from his back, pulsing with controlled power. All aboard the fastest transport in the galaxy. A field of energy extended from Ben's transformed body, enveloping his friends. To their surprise, they found themselves weightless within the field, perfectly protected but free to move. This is remarkable, Rook observed, analyzing the energy field with his proto-tool. A perfect synthesis of 3 distinct alien physiologies, functioning as a single cohesive entity. Ben shot skyward, accelerating to speeds that would have been impossible for any of his individual alien forms. The desert blurred beneath them, and within seconds, they were approaching Bellwood. I can see the ships, Ben reported, his enhanced vision detecting details from miles away. Definitely not harvesters. These look. Incursion. Incursions. Gwen frowned. Why would they be interested in the Omnitrix now? They've never shown much interest in genetic technology before. Maybe they heard about my upgrade and decided I'm too dangerous to leave alone, Ben suggested, decelerating as they approached the city limits. Wouldn't be the first time someone tried to take me out as a preemptive measure. The incoming ships confirmed his suspicion, the distinctive frog-like design of Incursion battle cruisers was unmistakable. 3 large warships surrounded by fighter squadrons descended toward Bellwood, weapons charged. Attention Earth defenders, a familiar voice boomed across the city. This is Emperor Milius of the Incursion Empire. Surrender Ben Tennyson and the Omnitrix immediately, or face planetary bombardment. Some things never change, Ben sighed. He deposited his friends on a rooftop before hovering above the city, making himself visible to the Incursion fleet. Milius. Don't you ever get tired of making the same threats? The lead warship's communications screen activated, projecting a massive image of Emperor Milius's face above the city. Tennyson. Our intelligence reports indicate you've acquired access to all known genetic codes in the galaxy. Such power cannot be allowed to remain in the hands of an Earth primitive. First the Harvesters, now the Incursions, Kevin muttered. News travels fast in space. Ben hovered confidently before the Incursion fleet, his hybrid form's energy wings pulsing with controlled power. Let me guess, you want the Omnitrix for yourself. Get in line, Milius. Better aliens than you have tried and failed. I do not seek to claim it, Milius retorted, surprising them all. I seek to destroy it. No single being should wield the genetic potential of an entire galaxy. The balance of power is already disrupted, Ben finished for him. But not by me. I'm the same Ben Tennyson I've always been, just with more options now. And one of those options is kicking your slimy Incursion but back to your home planet if you don't leave Earth alone. Milius laughed, the sound booming across the city. Brave words from a child playing with powers beyond his comprehension. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. He turned to someone off-screen. Target the human settlement's water reservoir. Show Tennyson we are not making empty threats. One of the Incursion warships repositioned, weapons charging as it aimed at Bellwood's main water supply, a crucial resource for the entire region. Ben felt something shift in his mind, alien perspectives merging, offering strategic insights beyond his normal thinking. Without conscious thought, he touched the Omnitrix symbol, transforming again while maintaining full awareness of his objective. The green flash revealed a new hybrid, this one combining elements of Gravitac, NRG, and water hazard into a form that radiated controlled gravitational fields while generating and manipulating superheated plasma and water simultaneously. Hydroflux, Ben named the form automatically, feeling its capabilities intuitively. As the Incursion ship fired, Ben extended his hands, creating a gravitational lens that bent the energy beam away from its target. Simultaneously, he generated a massive sphere of superheated water vapor that absorbed and dissipated the remaining energy. Impossible! Milius roared. All ships, open fire. The Incursion fleet unleashed a barrage of weapons fire toward the city, but Ben was ready. His hybrid form's unique combination of powers allowed him to create a gravitational shield around Bellwood while manipulating water from the atmosphere to form a secondary barrier that absorbed and redirected the incoming energy. From the rooftop, Gwen, Kevin, and Rook watched in amazement as Ben single-handedly defended the entire city, his movements precise and calculated despite never having used this combination before. He's fighting differently, Gwen observed. More efficiently. Like he's had that form for years. The alien consciousness integration, Rook suggested. He appears to be accessing the instinctive knowledge of multiple species simultaneously. Ben felt exactly that, strategies and techniques flowing into his mind from the combined alien consciousnesses, guiding his actions with expertise beyond his personal experience. It wasn't just power, it was generations of evolved knowledge suddenly accessible to him. Enough defense, Ben decided, rising higher above the city. Time to end this. He touched the Omnitrix symbol again, this time deliberately combining Automix, Feedback, and Alien X, three of his most powerful forms, while carefully limiting the Celestialsapian influence to avoid the personality dissociation issues. The transformation was blinding, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When they looked again, Ben had become something that barely resembled a physical being, a humanoid form composed of swirling cosmic energy, green and black celestial patterns flowing through a body that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime. Stars and galaxies could be glimpsed within his form, and reality itself bent slightly around him. Ultimate Celestial, Ben's voice resonated with power that transcended physical sound, reaching directly into the minds of all who heard it. Emperor Milius, you have exactly one chance to withdraw your forces peacefully. Even the normally bombastic Milius seemed momentarily stunned into silence, his amphibian eyes widening at the display of power before him. What are you?" he finally demanded, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "I am what the universe needs me to be," Ben replied, the knowledge and perspective of countless civilizations flowing through his consciousness. "A protector when possible. A warrior when necessary." Energy coalesced around his hands, forming patterns of incredible complexity. "Make your choice, Emperor." Milius visibly struggled with his decision, pride warring with self-preservation. Finally, self-preservation won. Incursian forces, retreat. Tactical withdrawal to Sector 7. A wise decision, Ben acknowledged, maintaining his position as the Incursion fleet began pulling back. "But know this, Milius, Earth remains under my protection. Spread the word throughout the galaxy, those who come in peace are welcome. Those who come seeking conflict will find more than they bargained for." As the Incursion ships accelerated away from Earth, Ben remained hovering above the city, his cosmic form radiating power visible for miles away, a deliberate message to any watching eyes across the galaxy. Only when the ships had completely left Earth's atmosphere did Ben descend to the rooftop where his friends waited, their expressions a mix of awe and concern. "Ben." Gwen approached cautiously. "Are you okay in there?" Ben's cosmic form pulsed with energy as he struggled to find words that could bridge the gap between what he was experiencing and what humans could understand. "I am, more than okay. More than Ben. But still Ben." "You're scaring us a little, buddy," Kevin admitted, keeping a respectful distance from the energy radiating from Ben's form. With visible effort, Ben touched the Omnitrix symbol, reverting to human form. He immediately staggered, would have fallen if Rook hadn't caught him. "Whoa," Ben gasped, blinking rapidly as his consciousness readjusted to human limitations. "That was, intense doesn't begin to describe it. What happened in there?" Gwen asked, supporting him from the other side. "You seemed different, even your speech patterns changed." Ben took a moment to collect his thoughts, waiting for the echo of alien perspectives to settle into the background of his mind. "When I combined those particular aliens, especially with the Celestialsapian DNA involved, I wasn't just accessing their powers, I was experiencing the universe through their collective awareness." "That sounds dangerous," Rook observed. "Celestial sapiens alone have consciousness issues that make transformation problematic." "It is dangerous," Ben acknowledged. "I could feel myself slipping away, becoming something else entirely. But that's what the catalyst meant about integration being more than addition." He tapped his temple. "I'm learning to maintain my core identity while allowing the alien perspectives to inform rather than overwhelm me." Sirens wailed below as emergency services responded to minor damage from the brief confrontation. Plumber ships were already on scene, implementing containment protocols to prevent panic. 2 alien invasions in less than a week, Kevin remarked. "That's got to be some kind of record, even for you." Ben looked skyward, his expression unusually solemn. "And it's just beginning. The catalyst was right, this power makes me a nexus point. Everything's going to change. Then we face it together," Gwen insisted, squeezing his shoulder. "Team Tennyson, just like always." Ben nodded gratefully, but inside, he wasn't so sure. The alien perspectives integrating into his mind showed him possibilities and dangers his friends couldn't imagine. The universe had just become infinitely more complex, and somehow, he knew his greatest challenges still lay ahead. As they made their way back to Plumber headquarters, Ben scrolled through the Omnitrix's expanded catalog absently, the names of alien species blurring together in an almost infinite list. 1 million aliens, with countless combinations possible between them. Infinite possibilities indeed. Chapter 2, The Weight of Worlds. 6 weeks passed like a blur. Ben sat cross-legged on a floating platform in the Plumber's advanced training facility, eyes closed in deep concentration. The Omnitrix glowed softly on his wrist as he cycled through alien forms in his mind, organizing them into categories, combinations, and strategic applications. "Focus on the transition," Azimuth instructed from a nearby console. The Galvan genius had reluctantly established a semi-permanent workstation on Earth after the Harvester and Incursion incidents. Your mind must remain anchored during the shift between consciousness structures. Ben nodded without opening his eyes. I'm trying. He tapped the Omnitrix, transforming into a crystalline being with 4 arms and glowing energy patterns throughout its body. Tetrax Diamond, he announced, the name coming naturally to his transformed mind. Hold the form for exactly 20 seconds, then switch to the aquatic hybrid, Azimuth directed, monitoring energy readings. Ben counted silently, feeling the crystalline consciousness settling into his human mind, the strategic thinking, the appreciation for symmetry and structure, the cool logic. At precisely 20 seconds, he touched the Omnitrix again. The green flash revealed a sleek, amphibious form with elements of Ripjaws, Water Hazard, and Amphibian merged into a cohesive whole. Voltage Tide, Ben's voice bubbled through specialized breathing structures. Transition stable. Brain wave patterns show improvement, Azimuth noted, examining the displays. The neural shock is decreasing with each transformation sequence. Gwen entered the training room, carrying data tablets. I've got the results from the dimensional resonance tests. The energy signatures are definitely changing. Ben shifted back to human form with a flash of green light, jumping down from the platform. Changing how? Your transformations are creating ripples, Gwen explained, handing a tablet to Azimuth. Especially the hybrid forms. They're like new species being momentarily introduced to the universe. It's affecting the background dimensional fabric. Ben grabbed a towel, wiping sweat from his face. The training sessions had grown increasingly intense as Azimuth pushed him to maintain control through rapid transformations. Is that bad? Unknown, Azimuth replied, frowning at the data. But concerning. The universe maintains balance through established patterns. New genetic combinations introduced at this rate could have unforeseen consequences. So I should stop using hybrids? Ben asked, unable to hide his disappointment. The combination forms had proven incredibly effective, allowing him to tackle threats with unprecedented versatility. That would be prudent, Azimuth began, but was interrupted by an alert from the plumber's emergency system. Max Tennyson's voice came through the facility speakers. Ben, we've got a situation in the Atlantic. Underwater research station under attack. Unknown hostiles. On my way, Ben replied automatically, already moving toward the exit. Ben, Azimuth called after him. Remember what we discussed. Traditional transformations only. No hybrids until we understand the dimensional resonance effects. Ben hesitated at the doorway, then nodded. Got it. Classic aliens only. As he rushed out, Gwen and Azimuth exchanged concerned glances. He's not going to listen, is he? Gwen asked. Would you, with that much power at your fingertips? Azimuth sighed. The boy's restraint has improved, but he remains. Ben Tennyson. That's what worries me, Gwen admitted. He's still Ben, but different. You've noticed it too, right? The way he talks sometimes, the expressions that aren't his. Azimuth nodded gravely. Consciousness bleed through. Expected, but progressing faster than anticipated. The alien perspectives are integrating with his human identity. Is he in danger? Not imminently, Azimuth replied carefully. But I fear what he may become if the integration progresses too rapidly. The Ben Tennyson we know could be diluted by the countless alien minds he now carries within him. Gwen looked toward the door where Ben had disappeared. Then we better make sure he doesn't lose himself. The Atlantic churned with unusual energy patterns as the Rust Bucket 3 descended toward the coordinates of the underwater research facility. Ben stood on the bridge beside Kevin, who piloted the ship with practiced ease. Plumber Science Station Echo Deep, Kevin explained, pointing to schematics on the display. Built to study deep ocean anomalies. Went dark about an hour ago, then started broadcasting distress signals. Any visual confirmation of attackers? Ben asked, studying the station's layout. Nothing concrete, Kevin replied. But energy readings are off the charts. Whatever's down there, it's putting out serious power. Rook joined them, adjusting his proto-tool settings. The station's protective dome appears intact, but internal sensors show flooding in sections 3 and 7. Ben nodded, already mentally cycling through his aquatic alien options. I'll head in first, assess the situation. You guys stand by for backup. Classic Ben Tennyson, Kevin smirked. Rush in alone. Actually, Ben corrected, that's careful strategic assessment based on our relative strengths. I have dozens of forms adapted for underwater combat and rescue. You guys don't. Kevin raised an eyebrow at Ben's unusually methodical response. Since when are you the voice of tactical reason? Ben didn't answer immediately, realizing how different his thought process had become. 6 weeks of constant exposure to alien minds had changed his approach to problem solving. He thought more systematically now, considering variables and outcomes his old self would have ignored. Just trying something new, he finally said with a forced grin. Don't worry, I'll still punch stuff. The Rust Bucket 3 reached the coordinates, hovering 50 feet above the churning waves. The underwater facility wasn't visible from the surface, located 300 meters below. Sensors are being scrambled, Rook reported with concern. Something is generating an interference field. Ben moved to the ship's exit hatch. Only one way to find out what's happening. He activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through the alien selection interface. Going with Ripjaws. Classic underwater option, no hybrids. The green flash enveloped him, but when it faded, Ben had become something unexpected, a tall, sleek being with bioluminescent patterns flowing across iridescent skin. Four-finned arms extended from a torso designed for incredible underwater speed, and compound eyes offered panoramic vision. This isn't Ripjaws, Kevin observed unnecessarily. Ben examined his transformed body in confusion. I definitely selected Ripjaws. The Omnitrix must have overridden my choice. What is this form? Rook asked, scanning Ben with his proto-tool. I think. Ben concentrated, allowing the alien consciousness to surface in his mind. Abyssal glider. From the deepest oceans of Terra Frigid. They navigate through absolute darkness using bioelectric fields. The Omnitrix chose a form better suited to the mission parameters, Rook suggested. Maybe, Ben replied uncertainly. Or it's another side effect of having too many options unlocked. He shook his head, focusing on the task. Doesn't matter now. I'm going in. He opened the hatch and dove into the churning ocean. The moment he hit the water, his transformed body responded with incredible efficiency, propelling him downward at speeds no Earth creature could match. The darkness of the deep ocean posed no obstacle, his bioluminescent patterns adjusted automatically, and his bioelectric sense mapped his surroundings in perfect detail. Ben descended rapidly, following the station's energy signature. As he approached, he detected unusual vibrations in the water, patterns too regular to be natural currents. Something was generating powerful sound waves. The research station came into view, a domed structure anchored to the ocean floor with multiple extending arms housing various scientific instruments. Ben immediately spotted the problem. A massive crack ran along one side of the main dome, and figures moved around it, definitely not human. Ben activated his communicator. Found the station. Structural damage to the main dome. I count 5, no, 7 unidentified entities. Can you describe them? Rook's voice came through clearly despite the depth. Ben focused his enhanced vision on the creatures. They were roughly humanoid but with elongated limbs and what appeared to be transparent sections in their torsos. Energy pulsed within them in hypnotic patterns. Like nothing I've seen before, Ben reported. They seem to be studying the breach they created. Not attacking, more like examining. As Ben drew closer, one of the entities turned toward him. It had no visible eyes, but Ben felt a sudden pressure in his mind, an unmistakable telepathic probe. Curious, a voice echoed directly in his thoughts. A hybrid consciousness within a singular form. Paradoxical. Fascinating. Ben halted his approach, startled by the intrusion. They're telepathic. And they've spotted me. The entities now all turned toward him, their bodies pulsing with increased luminescence. The telepathic pressure intensified as multiple minds touched his simultaneously. The Nexus being, they communicated in unison. The one who contains multitudes. You are the catalyst's chosen. How do you know about the catalyst? Ben demanded, maintaining his position at a cautious distance. We know all connections. All unions. All mergings. The creatures began moving toward him in perfect synchronization. We are unity. Ben tensed, ready for attack, but their movements didn't seem aggressive, more curious, methodical. He sensed no immediate hostile intent. What do you want with the research station? He asked, gesturing toward the damaged facility. Knowledge. Understanding. The humans study deep connections, currents that link worlds. We study deeper connections, currents that link minds, species, realities. Inside the station, Ben could now see researchers huddled in a sealed compartment, watching the intruders with terrified expressions. Several sections were indeed flooded, but the emergency bulkheads had prevented total catastrophe. You're scaring them, Ben pointed out. And you damaged their facility. Unintended. Physical structures are incidental to our purpose. The Unity beings moved closer, their synchronized movements creating complex patterns in the water. You are the one we seek. The bridge between separate forms. Ben maintained his distance. Look, if you're not here to hurt anyone, then help me repair the damage you've caused. There are people in danger. The Unity beings paused, seeming to confer among themselves without visible communication. Finally, they responded, agreed. Separation causes suffering. We will assist in repair. To Ben's surprise, 3 of the entities moved to the damaged section of the dome. Their bodies began to transform, becoming something like living sealant that spread across the breach. The material hardened instantly, stopping the water infiltration. That's actually helpful, Ben admitted, surprised. He swam toward the station's airlock. Now I need to check on the researchers. We will wait, the remaining Unity entities communicated. There is much to discuss, Nexus being. You carry the future within you. Ben entered the station through the emergency airlock, reverting to human form once inside. The researchers, a team of 8 plumber scientists, looked relieved to see him. Ben Tennyson. A woman in a plumber uniform approached. Dr. Lacos, station chief. Thank goodness you're here. Those things appeared out of nowhere and breached our dome without warning. Are they gone? Another scientist asked anxiously. Not exactly, Ben replied. They're helping repair the damage. They call themselves the Unity. Dr. Lacos frowned. Unity. We've never encountered anything like them in these waters before. I don't think they're from Earth, Ben explained, moving to a control console to check the station's systems. The breach is sealed, but you've got flooding in 2 sections. We can handle that with the emergency pumps, Dr. Lacos assured him. But what do these Unity creatures want? Why attack us, then help repair the damage? They said they were studying the deep currents, Ben explained. But I think they were actually looking for me. The scientists exchanged confused glances. Ben activated his communicator. Kevin, Rook, situation under control for now. The entities call themselves the Unity and they've temporarily repaired the breach. No hostile actions currently. Want us to come down? Kevin asked. Not yet, Ben decided. I'm going to talk to them, find out what they really want. Stand by for extraction if needed. Ben returned to the airlock, transformed back into Abyssal Glider, and rejoined the Unity beings hovering outside the station. The separated ones are safe, the Unity communicated. It wasn't a question. Yes. Now explain why you're really here, Ben demanded. You said you were looking for me. How did you know where to find me? We followed the ripples. Your transformations create disturbances in the fabric of connection. Each new combination sends waves across the dimensional membrane. The Unity entities circled Ben slowly. You are changing the fundamental matrix, Nexus being. My name is Ben, he corrected. And what matrix are you talking about? The separation matrix. The artificial construct that maintains boundaries between consciousnesses. The Unity's telepathic voice grew more intense. Life evolves toward unity, not separation. Individual forms are temporary vessels on the path to collective existence. Ben felt uneasy at their words. That sounds a lot like you think everyone should be merged together. Yes. The Unity pulsed with excitement. You understand. Separation is inefficient. Painful. Limiting. Unity is the natural evolutionary endpoint of all sentient life. Yeah, hard pass on that, Ben replied firmly. Most beings are pretty attached to their individual identities. As you once were, the Unity observed. Yet now you carry multitudes within. You experience the perspective of countless species. Are you not greater for this expansion? Is your consciousness not enriched? The question struck closer to home than Ben wanted to admit. The alien perspectives had changed him, broadened him in ways he couldn't fully articulate. He understood things now that would have been incomprehensible to his former self. That's different, he insisted. I'm still me, just with more insight. The first step toward understanding, the Unity approved. You are the bridge, Nexus being. Through you, others will learn the path toward unity. Ben felt increasingly uncomfortable with the conversation. Look, I'm not interested in being your evolutionary poster boy. I just want to make sure this station and its people are safe. They are safe. We have no interest in harming separate vessels. The Unity beings began to pulse with increased luminescence. But know this, Ben, who contains multitudes, the barriers between minds grow thinner each time you transform. Each combination weakens the separation matrix. Whether you intend it or not, you serve Unity's purpose. With that cryptic statement, the entities began to move away from the station, their forms becoming less distinct as they descended into the darker depths. We will meet again, Nexus being, their final telepathic message echoed in Ben's mind. When you are ready to embrace your true role. Ben watched them disappear into the abyss, troubled by their words. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed with steady green light, as if responding to his unease. Guys, he called through his communicator. The Unity is retreating. Station is secure, but we need to talk. These beings know something about the catalyst, and they think my transformations are doing something to the fabric of reality. That aligns with Azmatha's concerns, Rook's voice replied. Return to the surface, Ben. I believe this situation requires further analysis. Ben took one last look at the depths where the Unity had vanished before swimming back toward the surface, their words echoing in his mind, whether you intend it or not, you serve Unity's purpose. Back at Plumber headquarters, Ben sat at the central briefing table surrounded by Gwen, Kevin, Rook, Grandpa Max, and a visibly agitated Azmath. I knew it, the Galvan inventor muttered, pacing across the tabletop. The dimensional resonance patterns were indicating precisely this phenomenon. Your hybrid transformations are weakening the natural barriers between consciousness structures. In English for those of us who skipped Interdimensional Physics 101. Kevin requested. Azmath sighed. When Ben transforms into combinations that have never existed before, he's essentially creating new species temporarily. Each one sends ripples through reality, like throwing a stone in a pond. Do it enough times. And the pond starts to erode, Gwen finished, understanding dawning. The barriers between separate minds begin to break down. Precisely, Azimuth confirmed. These unity beings appear to be from a dimension where consciousness separation never evolved, or was deliberately abandoned. They exist in a collective state and apparently believe this is the correct evolutionary path for all life. Ben leaned back in his chair, uncharacteristically quiet. The alien perspectives in his mind were unusually active, responding to the discussion with a cacophony of viewpoints. Some agreed with Azimuth's concern, others resonated with the Unity's philosophy, still others offered alternative interpretations. Ben. Grandpa Max prompted, noticing his grandson's silence. What are you thinking? I'm thinking. Ben hesitated, trying to sort through the competing thoughts. I'm thinking that the Unity wasn't entirely wrong. Since the catalyst unlocked all these transformations, I've experienced consciousness in ways I never imagined. It has changed me. Changed how? Gwen asked, concern evident in her voice. Ben struggled to find the right words. It's like, before, I was looking at the universe through a keyhole. Now I've got windows in every direction. I understand things instinctively that I couldn't have comprehended before. That's exactly what concerns me, Azimuth interjected. Your human identity is being influenced, perhaps even diluted, by the alien perspectives you're absorbing. Is that necessarily bad? Ben challenged, surprising everyone. Expanding understanding, gaining new perspectives, isn't that growth? Not if you lose yourself in the process, Grandpa Max replied gently. Ben fell silent again, aware that his defense of consciousness expansion wasn't something his old self would have articulated. Was that proof they were right to be concerned? Or proof that he was evolving in beneficial ways? Regardless, Rook steered the conversation back to practical matters. We must determine whether these Unity beings pose a threat. They didn't seem aggressive, Ben offered. More like missionaries. They think they're offering something beneficial. The most dangerous zealots always do, Azimuth remarked dryly. An alert suddenly sounded throughout the base. The main screen activated automatically, displaying a star map with multiple approaching signatures. Unidentified vessels entering the solar system, the automated system announced. Configuration unknown. Estimated arrival at Earth, 47 minutes. More visitors. Kevin groaned. We're getting popular. Max moved to the command console, accessing deeper scans. Energy signatures don't match any known species in the Plummer database. Send the readings to my pad, Azimuth requested, already pulling up analytical software. As the data transferred, his expression grew increasingly concerned. This is troubling. The molecular structure of these vessels, it appears to be partially biological. Living ships. The Unity? Gwen suggested. Ben shook his head. The Unity didn't use ships. They moved through water like it was their natural element. Whatever they are, they're on a direct course for Earth, Max noted grimly. And they're accelerating. Ben stood up, decision made. Time to meet our visitors before they reach Earth. Better to handle this in orbit than risk another downtown showdown. I'll prep the Rust Bucket 3, Kevin volunteered. No need, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix. I can handle this faster on my own. Ben, Azimuth warned, remember our discussion about hybrid forms and dimensional resonance. Ben hesitated, hand hovering over the Omnitrix. What if I need the extra firepower? These ships could be hostile. Then choose your transformations carefully, Azimuth advised. Traditional forms when possible. And Ben. He added, unusually solemn, be mindful of alien influences on your thinking. In the heat of battle, it can be easy to lose oneself. Ben nodded, understanding the Galvan's concern. I'll be careful. But I'm not sitting this one out because of theoretical risks. Before anyone could object further, he transformed into Jet Ray and shot upward, phasing through the ceiling and accelerating toward the upper atmosphere. As Earth fell away below him, Ben's transformed mind processed the situation with amphibian clarity. Jet Ray was an excellent choice for space travel, capable of surviving vacuum and achieving near-light speeds. But against unknown vessels, he might need more versatility. Reaching the edge of the atmosphere, Ben spotted the approaching ships, 7 biomechanical vessels moving in perfect formation. Their design was unlike anything in his experience, flowing, organic shapes with crystalline structures embedded throughout, pulsing with internal energy. Definitely not Unity, Ben muttered to himself. And not Harvesters or Incursions either. Great. Another new player. He activated his communicator. Visual contact established with unidentified vessels. Biomechanical construction, advanced design. No hostile movements yet, but they're maintaining course toward Earth. Proceed with caution, Ben, Max's voice replied. First contact protocols apply. Ben accelerated toward the lead ship, deliberately keeping his posture non-threatening as he approached. When he reached communication range, he broadcast on standard frequencies. Attention unidentified vessels. This is Ben Tennyson of Earth. State your intentions and purpose for entering Earth's solar system. There was no immediate response. The ships maintained their course, those sensors in their hull structures oriented toward Ben, obviously scanning him. I repeat, this is Ben Tennyson. Earth is under plumber protection. Please identify yourselves. After another moment of silence, a response finally came, not through conventional communications, but directly into Ben's mind, similar to the Unity's telepathy but more focused, precise. Ben Tennyson. Omnitrix wielder. Nexus anomaly. We have been seeking you. That's getting to be a common theme lately, Ben replied, maintaining his position. Who are you and what do you want? We are the Continuum. We exist to preserve balance across dimensional boundaries. The telepathic voice was neither male nor female, carrying a sense of ancient knowledge. Your activities have created disturbances that threaten cosmic equilibrium. Let me guess, Ben sighed. The hybrid transformations? Yes. Each new combination creates ripples that damage the separation matrix. The Unity seeks this outcome. We oppose it. Ben's mind raced. So you're enemies of the Unity? Opposites. Counterbalance. They believe all consciousness should merge. We believe distinct identities must be preserved. Both are necessary for universal balance, but neither should dominate. The lead ship altered course slightly, moving closer to Ben while the others maintained formation. We detected the Unity's approach to your world. Their interest in you is dangerous, Ben Tennyson. They would use you as a catalyst for forced consciousness merging across multiple dimensions. Yeah, I got that impression, Ben admitted. But they left without causing serious harm. They rarely act directly. They influence. Manipulate. Plant seeds that grow into irreversible change. The Continuum's mental voice grew more urgent. You must cease using hybrid transformations immediately. Each combination weakens the barriers the Continuum has maintained for eons. Ben felt conflicted. The alien perspectives within his mind responded differently to the Continuum's demand, some with agreement, others with skepticism, still others with outright rejection. The hybrid forms have helped me protect Earth, he pointed out. I can't just abandon an advantage that keeps my world safe. At what cost? The Continuum challenged. The dissolution of individual identity across multiple dimensions. The forced merging of countless beings into a collective consciousness they never chose. The ship suddenly shifted formation, surrounding Ben in a loose pattern that wasn't exactly threatening but definitely left him feeling contained. We have monitored your transformations, Ben Tennyson. The alien perspectives are already influencing your human identity. You speak differently. Think differently. Soon, you may not recognize the person you once were. That's called growing up, Ben countered, though he couldn't entirely dismiss the observation. People change, gain new perspectives. Not at this rate. Not in this manner. The lead ship pulsed with increased energy. We must insist you return to Earth and cease all hybrid transformations immediately. Something in the continuum's tone shifted, becoming less diplomatic, more commanding. Ben's instincts, human and alien alike, warned of escalating tension. I appreciate your concern, he replied carefully, but I make my own decisions about how to use the Omnitrix. Then you leave us no choice. The ship's energy patterns intensified. If you will not voluntarily cease these dangerous activities, we must contain the threat. The formation tightened around Ben, and energy fields began forming between vessels, creating a complex web. Hey, wait a second. Ben protested, realizing he was being entrapped. We were just talking. Dialogue has failed. Containment protocols engaged. You will be transported to a null dimension until a permanent solution can be implemented. Ben didn't wait to find out what permanent solution meant. He touched the Omnitrix symbol, transforming into Big Chill and phasing through the energy field as it tried to solidify around him. So much for peaceful first contact, he muttered, putting distance between himself and the ships. The vessels immediately gave pursuit, firing targeted energy pulses that seemed designed to disrupt his phasing ability. One grazed Big Chill's wing, sending unexpected pain through Ben's transformed body. That shouldn't have affected me in this form, Ben realized with alarm. The Continuum had weapons specifically designed to counter his alien abilities. Surrender, Ben Tennyson, the Continuum commanded. We do not wish to harm you, merely contain the threat you represent. I'm getting really tired of being called a threat, Ben replied, dodging another energy pulse. He needed more speed and offensive capability than Big Chill could provide. Despite Azimuth's warning, the situation demanded a hybrid form. He touched the Omnitrix symbol again, deliberately combining XLR-8, Chromastone, and Astrodactyl. The transformation produced a streamlined being crackling with prismatic energy, wings of pure light extending from its back. Prismatic Comet. Ben named the form instinctively, feeling its capabilities flow into his consciousness. The hybrid transformation sent a visible shockwave through space, a ripple of energy that distorted the fabric of reality momentarily. The Continuum ships reacted immediately. You demonstrate the very danger we warn against, their telepathic voice thundered in Ben's mind. That transformation just weakened dimensional barriers across 3 sectors. Ben didn't respond verbally. His new form moved with incredible speed, light trails streaking behind him as he outpaced the pursuing vessels. Energy accumulated around him as he accelerated, converting the vacuum of space itself into power he could redirect. The Continuum ships adjusted tactics, no longer trying to capture but to disable. They fired more concentrated energy beams, targeting the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest. The device must be neutralized, the Continuum declared. Too dangerous in its current state. Ben dodged the attacks while gathering more energy. When he had accumulated sufficient power, he reversed course abruptly, shooting directly toward the lead ship. As he approached, he released the stored energy in a focused burst that disrupted the vessel's biomechanical systems. The ship listed to one side, its energy patterns fluctuating chaotically. The remaining vessels regrouped, forming a defensive pattern. This conflict is unnecessary, the Continuum insisted. We seek balance, not destruction. Could have fooled me, Ben replied, circling the formation at high speed. You went from talking to attacking in about 3 seconds flat. Because every moment you exist in your current state threatens cosmic equilibrium. The ships began generating a more complex energy field, one that expanded outward in all directions. We cannot allow the separation matrix to fail. Ben felt the energy field trying to neutralize his transformation, attempting to force him back to human form. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest flickered, struggling against the external influence. My watch, my rules, Ben declared, focusing his will on maintaining the transformation. He gathered more energy, preparing for another attack run. The Continuum ships suddenly ceased their energy field, changing tactics entirely. One of the vessels opened, revealing a chamber within. "Observe," the Continuum commanded. Within the chamber, Ben could see what appeared to be a being in tremendous distress. Its form constantly shifted, unable to maintain a stable shape, parts of it merging with its surroundings, then separating, only to merge again elsewhere. The creature's pain was palpable even across the vacuum of space. "This is a victim of matrix dissolution," the Continuum explained. "A being from a dimension where the barriers weakened too far. It can no longer distinguish between self and other. It exists in perpetual merger and separation, unable to stabilize its identity." Ben halted his attack, disturbed by the suffering creature. What happened to it? The Unity succeeded in weakening the separation matrix in its home dimension. This was the result for those who resisted the collective merger. Consciousness without boundaries becomes consciousness without definition. The revelation hit Ben hard. If what the Continuum showed was true, then the hybrid transformations might indeed be causing harm far beyond his understanding. "Can it be helped?" he asked, genuine concern overriding his defensive posture. "We maintain containment and comfort, but there is no cure once identity dissolution reaches this stage." The ship closed, concealing the suffering being once more. This is the future the Unity seeks for all dimensions. This is what your hybrid transformations unknowingly facilitate. Ben's transformed mind raced through possibilities, the alien perspectives offering conflicting interpretations and solutions. Part of him wanted to reject the Continuum's claims as manipulation, but another part, perhaps his core human empathy, couldn't dismiss the suffering he'd witnessed. "I need to consult with others about this," Ben finally said. "Return to Earth and discuss what you've shown me." The Continuum ships maintained their position, seemingly weighing his words. "You may return," they eventually responded. "But know that we will remain in your system, monitoring. If hybrid transformations continue at the current rate, we will be forced to take more decisive action." "What kind of action?" Ben asked warily. "The Omnitrix in its current state represents an existential threat to the separation matrix. If necessary, it must be neutralized permanently." The implication was clear: they would destroy the Omnitrix, and possibly Ben along with it, if they deemed it necessary. "I understand your position," Ben replied carefully. "But understand mine. Earth is under my protection. Any hostile action against my planet will be met with the full extent of my abilities, hybrid forms included. Then we are at an impasse." The Continuum ships began to withdraw slightly, maintaining a watchful distance. "Return to your world, Ben Tennyson. Consult your advisors. Choose wisely." Ben didn't wait for further discussion. He accelerated away from the Continuum fleet, streaking back toward Earth with the disquieting image of the identity dissolved being fixed in his mind. "A direct threat," Grandpa Max summarized after Ben recounted his encounter with the Continuum. "They'll destroy the Omnitrix if you continue using hybrid forms." After showing me why they think it's necessary, Ben added. "That being they're containing, it was suffering in a way I can't really describe. Like it was constantly being torn apart and pushed back together incorrectly." Azimuth nodded grimly. "Identity dissolution. A theoretical consequence of barrier breakdown between consciousness structures. I've never seen actual evidence of it before." "Could they be lying?" Kevin suggested. "Showing you something fake to manipulate you?" "The suffering was real," Ben said with certainty. "Whether it was caused how they claimed, that I don't know." Gwen, who had been quietly analyzing data from the encounter, looked up from her tablet. "The energy readings from the Continuum ships match patterns we've detected during your hybrid transformations, just inverted. Like they're generating the opposite force to counteract the ripples." "Which suggests they are indeed what they claim," Rook concluded. "A counterbalance to the Unity." Ben paced the room restlessly. The alien perspectives in his mind had grown more active since the confrontation, as if the mention of identity dissolution had triggered a self-preservation response across multiple species' consciousnesses. So I'm caught between two cosmic forces, he summarized. The Unity, who want me to keep making hybrid forms to break down barriers between minds. And the Continuum, who want me to stop because it threatens the separation matrix they maintain. A classic cosmic dichotomy, Azimuth observed. Merger versus separation. Unity versus individuality. Neither inherently evil, but both potentially destructive in the extreme. And I'm the guy stuck in the middle with a watch that can apparently tip the balance, Ben concluded. Great. The question remains, Max said, bringing focus back to immediate concerns. What do we do about the Continuum fleet currently orbiting our planet? And what about the Unity? Gwen added. They found Ben once. They'll find him again. Ben stopped pacing, coming to a decision. I need more information before I decide anything. The Continuum showed me their evidence, but I need to understand what's really happening to the separation matrix they keep talking about. And to do that, I need to see it for myself. What are you suggesting? Azimuth asked warily. There's one alien that might be able to perceive the dimensional barriers directly, Ben explained, activating the Omnitrix's holographic display. Alien X, celestial sapiens exist partially outside normal reality. If I transform into Alien X, I might be able to directly observe what's happening to these barriers. Absolutely not, Azimuth objected immediately. Celestialsapien transformation is dangerous enough under normal circumstances. With your current condition, multiple alien consciousnesses already influencing your mind, adding Serena and Bellicus to the mix could be catastrophic. I've handled Alien X before, Ben countered. Not since the catalyst unlocked all alien forms, Azimuth pointed out. The consciousness bleed-through effect could be exponentially worse with a Celestialsapien's complex neural structure. Ben considered this, then had another idea. What about a partial transformation? The Omnitrix can isolate specific genetic traits now. Maybe I could access Alien X's perception abilities without the full personality matrix. Azimuth stroked his chin thoughtfully. Theoretically possible, but extremely precise calibration would be required. Then let's do it, Ben decided. Help me set up the Omnitrix for a limited Alien X transformation. Just enough to see the dimensional barriers. After considerable debate and careful preparation, Azimuth reluctantly assisted in programming the Omnitrix for the partial transformation. The entire team gathered in the most secure chamber of Plummer headquarters, with multiple failsafes in place. Remember, Azimuth instructed as Ben prepared to activate the modified transformation, this is observation only. Do not attempt to interact with anything you perceive beyond our dimension. The Celestialsapien perspective is powerful but dangerous, like looking directly at the sun. Ben nodded, taking a deep breath. Here goes nothing. He activated the Omnitrix. The green flash was different this time, darker, with swirls of cosmic energy mixed within. When it faded, Ben remained mostly human in appearance, but his eyes had transformed into miniature galaxies, and his skin occasionally revealed glimpses of the starry cosmos beneath. Ben? Gwen asked cautiously. Are you still you? Ben's voice had an echoing quality when he responded. Yeah, but I'm seeing everything. His perception had expanded beyond the physical room. He could see energy patterns flowing through reality itself, layers upon layers of dimensional fabric interwoven in complex patterns. And running through it all were trillions of thin, luminous strands connecting conscious beings across space and time. The separation matrix, Ben breathed in awe. I can see it. What does it look like? Azimuth asked intently. Like a cosmic web. Infinitely complex. It maintains boundaries between individual minds, between dimensions, between realities. Ben turned slowly, his starry eyes perceiving far beyond the room. And the Continuum was right. There are tears forming. Weak points. Caused by your transformations? Max asked. Ben concentrated, focusing his enhanced perception on himself and the Omnitrix. Yes and no. The hybrid transformations do create ripples, but... He paused, perceiving something unexpected. The Omnitrix itself was always designed to do this, just more slowly. It's a bridge between species, it naturally thins the barriers between different forms of consciousness. That's not possible, Azimuth objected. I created the Omnitrix as a preservation tool and means of understanding, not to break down dimensional barriers. Not intentionally, Ben agreed, his cosmic perception revealing deeper patterns. But that's an inherent side effect of its function. The catalyst didn't change its nature, it just accelerated and amplified what was already happening. Ben's gaze shifted to a particular point in space, directly above their location. The continuum ships. I can see how they're reinforcing the matrix, strengthening the weak points. And elsewhere. He turned to face another direction. The Unity. They're gathering at dimensional thin spots, applying pressure. Two opposing forces, Rook observed. Like cosmic antibodies with different approaches to the same perceived problem. Ben suddenly gasped, his galaxy eyes widening. There's something else. Something, watching from between dimensions. Ancient. Patient. It's been waiting for the barriers to weaken. What is it? Gwen asked urgently. Before Ben could answer, pain shot through his transformed mind. The partial celestialsapian consciousness began expanding beyond its constraints, reaching for full manifestation. Ben clutched his head, dropping to his knees. Serena. Bellicus, they're trying to surface, he gasped. Can't, maintain separation. End the transformation now. Azimuth commanded. Ben reached for the Omnitrix symbol with trembling fingers, managing to tap it just as darkness began creeping into his vision. The green flash returned him to fully human form, and he collapsed forward, breathing heavily. Ben. Gwen rushed to his side, helping him sit up. Are you okay? Define okay, Ben groaned, rubbing his temples. The echoes of cosmic perception lingered, making the normal world seem flat and limited by comparison. My brain feels like it's been stretched across 10 dimensions and snapped back. What did you see at the end? Azimuth pressed. What's watching from between dimensions? Ben struggled to articulate what he'd glimpsed in those final moments. Something ancient. It called itself, the Divergence. It's the third player in this cosmic game, neither unity nor continuum. It wants the barriers weakened not for merging or separation, but for invasion. Another dimensional entity? Max asked with concern. Ben shook his head, wincing at the motion. Not entity. Entities. Plural. A whole civilization that lost their dimension eons ago. They've been searching for a new home, and the weakening barriers around Earth make it a prime target. That would explain why both the Unity and Continuum are focusing their attention here, Rook reasoned. They sense this divergence gathering. But they're approaching it from opposite directions, Ben added. The Unity thinks universal consciousness merging would create a collective strong enough to repel the divergence. The Continuum believes strengthening the barriers is the only solution. And the divergence itself wants you to keep making hybrid forms, Kevin concluded grimly. Breaking down the walls so they can move in. Ben nodded slowly, the implications becoming clear. I'm being manipulated by all sides. The catalyst, the Unity, the Continuum, maybe even the divergence itself. All trying to use me and the Omnitrix to further their cosmic agenda. Azimuth looked troubled. Perhaps the Omnitrix should be deactivated until we better understand the situation. No, Ben replied firmly, standing up despite his lingering discomfort. That's exactly what each faction wants, for me to stop helping the others. The truth is, none of them has the complete answer. He looked down at the Omnitrix, seeing it with new understanding after his cosmic perception experience. The hybrid forms aren't just powerful combinations, they're evolutionary stepping stones. They're showing a path towards something new, not complete unity or rigid separation, but a balance between connection and individuality. That's a pretty abstract solution to an immediate problem, Kevin pointed out. We've got 3 cosmic forces converging on Earth, and at least one of them seems hostile. Then we need to make our position clear to all of them, Ben decided. I'm going back to space to talk to the Continuum. Then I'm going to find the unity and hear their side again. And then. He paused, eyes narrowing with determination. I'm going to track down this divergence and find out what they're really planning. A diplomatic mission to 3 cosmic forces? Max looked skeptical. That's ambitious even for you, Ben. Who said anything about diplomacy? Ben grinned, though there was a new gravity behind his expression. I'm going to make it very clear that Earth isn't a cosmic battlefield for their ancient conflicts. And I'm going to use whatever alien forms I need, hybrid or otherwise, to make that point. Ben, Azimuth cautioned, your mind is still integrating the alien perspectives. Making rational decisions in this state is exactly what I need to do, Ben interrupted. The alien perspectives aren't corrupting me, Azimuth. They're giving me insights I wouldn't have otherwise. For the first time, I can actually understand what's happening on a cosmic scale. The conviction in Ben's voice gave everyone pause. There was something different in his demeanor, a certainty and maturity that hadn't been there before. Whether it was natural growth or alien influence was impossible to determine. At least take backup, Gwen insisted. Kevin and I can. No, Ben shook his head. Where I'm going, you can't follow. The continuum operates in near vacuum. The unity exists in deep ocean trenches. And the divergence. He shuddered slightly at the memory, exists between dimensions. This is something I have to handle alone. Before anyone could object further, Ben activated the Omnitrix, selecting a hybrid form he'd been mentally designing during the conversation, a combination of jet-ray, feedback, and clockwork. Chronovolt, he announced as the transformation completed. His new form crackled with temporal energy, wings of pure chronon particles extending from a sleek body designed for both space travel and energy manipulation. Ben, wait! Azimuth called out, but Ben had already phased through the ceiling, accelerating toward orbit with speeds that distorted time around him. The Galvan inventor stared at the spot where Ben had vanished, his expression troubled. The boy is changing faster than I anticipated. The alien perspectives are integrating too efficiently. Is that really bad? Gwen asked. He seems more focused. More aware. That's precisely what concerns me, Azimuth replied. Ben Tennyson was chosen as the Omnitrix wielder partly because of his human perspective, his ability to approach problems in unorthodox, uniquely human ways. As the alien consciousnesses integrate more fully, that human element may be diluted. You think he'll stop being Ben? Max asked, the concern of a grandfather evident in his voice. Azimuth sighed. I think he'll become something more than Ben. Whether that's an improvement or a loss remains to be seen. The Continuum ships maintain their position in high Earth orbit, their biomechanical structures pulsing with steady energy as they reinforce the dimensional barriers around the planet. Ben approached openly, making no attempt to conceal his hybrid form. As expected, the ships immediately reacted, moving to intercept him. You have chosen to defy our warning, the Continuum's telepathic voice reached into Ben's mind, disapproval evident. And you approach in yet another hybrid form, further damaging the separation matrix. I came to talk, Ben replied, maintaining a respectful distance. After seeing things from a Celestialsapien's perspective, I understand the situation better. The ships paused, seemingly surprised. You accessed Celestialsapien perception? Without losing your identity? Impressive, and concerning. I saw the separation matrix, Ben continued. I saw how my transformations affected. But I also saw something you didn't mention, the divergence. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The continuum ships pulsed with intense energy, their formation tightening defensively. You perceived the divergence? The telepathic voice now carried a note of alarm. This changes our assessment significantly. I thought it might, Ben replied. You're not just protecting the separation matrix for its own sake. You're trying to keep the divergence contained in their between space. For the protection of all dimensions, the continuum confirmed. The divergence lost their home dimension through their own actions, reckless experimentation with fundamental forces. They have spent eons seeking a new dimension to colonize, regardless of the cost to existing inhabitants. And the Unity knows about them too, Ben stated rather than asked. Yes, but their solution is flawed. They believe universal consciousness merger would create an entity powerful enough to repel the divergence. They fail to understand that such merging would simply create a more appealing target, a dimension-wide consciousness the divergence could consume at once. Ben processed this information, the hybrid form's enhanced cognition allowing him to analyze multiple perspectives simultaneously. Neither approach alone will work. The barriers can't hold forever, and forced consciousness merger would be disastrous. Then you understand why your hybrid transformations must cease, the continuum pressed. They accelerate the weakening process exponentially. Or, Ben countered, they could be the key to a third option. The continuum ships shifted position slightly, their energy patterns indicating curiosity despite their skepticism. Explain. The hybrid forms aren't just combinations of physical traits, they're new patterns of consciousness, Ben explained, articulating insights from his cosmic perception experience. They demonstrate that connection doesn't have to mean complete merger, and separation doesn't have to mean isolation. There's a balance point, a way for minds to communicate without losing individuality. A theoretical possibility, the continuum acknowledged reluctantly. But unproven and potentially dangerous to implement at scale. Which is why I need to speak with the Unity as well, Ben continued. And then find a way to communicate directly with the divergence. All three perspectives are needed to solve this. You propose diplomacy with the divergence? The continuum's telepathic voice carried clear alarm. They cannot be trusted. They have consumed 7 dimensions already, leaving nothing but void behind. I'm not proposing an alliance, Ben clarified. I'm proposing understanding. If they need a new dimensional home, maybe there's a solution that doesn't involve invading occupied dimensions. Naive, the continuum judged. The divergence accepts no limitations, no compromises. They take what they desire without regard for existing life. Then I'll deal with them accordingly, Ben replied, his tone hardening. But I need to assess the threat firsthand. The continuum ships conferred among themselves, their energy patterns fluctuating in complex sequences. Finally, they responded, we cannot support this approach, but we recognize your determination. We will maintain our position and continue reinforcing the separation matrix. If your actions further weaken the barriers, however, we will be forced to intervene more directly. Fair enough, Ben acknowledged. Just understand this, Earth is under my protection. Any hostile action against my planet or its people will be met with the full extent of my abilities. Your loyalty to your dimension is commendable, the continuum replied. We hope it extends to all dimensions threatened by the divergence. With that final statement, the ships withdrew slightly, returning to their barrier reinforcement activities. Ben remained for a moment, considering his next move. The Unity had appeared in the deep ocean trenches before, returning there was his logical next step. As he turned to head back toward Earth, he noticed something strange, a slight distortion in space, similar to heat waves over hot pavement. The hybrid form's enhanced perception allowed him to detect what most would miss entirely. I see you, Ben called out to the seemingly empty space. Watching from between dimensions. The distortion rippled, as if surprised at being noticed. Then, slowly, it expanded, forming into a vertical tear in space approximately 7 feet tall. Through the opening, Ben glimpsed a swirling gray void, and within it, a figure gradually took shape. The being that emerged was humanoid in general outline but deeply alien in its details. Its form seemed to shift subtly, as if struggling to maintain cohesion in this dimension. Where a face would be, there was an arrangement of sensory organs unlike anything on Earth, and its limbs contained too many joints, bending in unnatural directions. Ben Tennyson, the creature spoke, its voice oddly fragmented, as if coming from multiple sources simultaneously. You are more perceptive than anticipated. And you're more bold than your friends, Ben replied, maintaining his position. The divergence, I presume. One of many, the being confirmed. I am designated observer. My function is assessment and communication. Well, you've been observed observing, Ben said. So let's communicate. Why are you interested in my transformations? The divergence being's form rippled with what might have been amusement. Direct. Efficient. Qualities we appreciate. It gestured toward the tear in space. My civilization requires a new dimensional home. Yours has become uniquely accessible. Because of my hybrid transformations weakening the barriers, Ben concluded. Precisely. A fortunate development we have been monitoring with great interest. The being's shifting form stabilized slightly, adopting a more clearly humanoid appearance as if trying to seem less alien. Your actions serve our needs without requiring our intervention. Until now, Ben pointed out. You've just intervened by showing yourself. A calculated risk, the divergence acknowledged. The continuum and unity have already made contact. We deemed it necessary to present our perspective directly. Which is what, exactly? Ben asked. That you want to invade my dimension and displace its native life forms? The being's form shimmered with what might have been indignation. A crude characterization. We seek coexistence, not displacement. Our dimensional adaptation technologies have advanced considerably since our earlier migrations. The continuum claims you've consumed 7 dimensions already, Ben challenged. The continuum exaggerates, the divergence replied smoothly. Those dimensions were already failing when we arrived. We simply accelerated inevitable outcomes and preserved what could be saved. Ben didn't need alien intuition to recognize the evasiveness in the response. And Earth? Our dimension. Is it failing too? Not yet, the being admitted. But the multiverse exists in cycles of creation and dissolution. Your dimension will eventually fade, as all do. We offer the opportunity for symbiotic existence before that inevitable end. How generous, Ben remarked dryly. And the fact that my hybrid transformations are conveniently weakening the dimensional barriers for you is just a happy coincidence. The divergence being's form rippled again. The catalyst serves its own agenda. We merely benefit from its actions, as we benefit from yours. Something clicked in Ben's mind. The catalyst. You know what it is, don't you? The catalyst is a complex entity, the divergence replied carefully. Neither ally nor adversary to any faction. It seeks evolution across all dimensions, regardless of consequences. And it chose me for a reason, Ben pressed. What was it? The divergence being seemed to consider its response carefully. You stand at a nexus point of possibility, Ben Tennyson. Your actions ripple across dimensions in ways you cannot fully comprehend. The catalyst recognized this potential and amplified it. Ben felt the alien perspectives in his mind reacting to this information, offering insights and connections he might otherwise have missed. The Omnitrix was always more than a transformation tool, wasn't it? Azimuth created it to preserve DNA, but its true potential goes beyond that. The Galvan genius built better than he knew, the divergence confirmed. The device creates connections between consciousnesses that would otherwise remain separate. It bridges dimensional gaps. In your hands, with all transformations unlocked, it has become a key that could open doors between realities. Or keep them firmly shut, Ben countered. Depending on how I choose to use it. The divergence being's form rippled with what might have been tension. Your perspective is limited by your dimensional experience. The barriers between realities were never meant to be absolute. Flow and exchange between dimensions is natural, necessary for cosmic health. Maybe, Ben acknowledged. But invasion isn't exchange. And from what I've seen and heard, your people aren't interested in a balanced relationship. The tear in space behind the divergence being pulsed, widening slightly. Other shapes could be glimpsed moving within the gray void beyond, watching. You have been misled by the continuum and unity, the divergence stated, its tone hardening. Both serve agendas that would restrict the natural evolution of consciousness across dimensions. We offer advancement, expansion, transcendence of current limitations. At what cost? Ben challenged. The continuum showed me beings suffering from identity dissolution. Is that the transcendence you're offering? Necessary transition pains, the divergence dismissed. The path to evolution is rarely comfortable for all participants. The being's callous response confirmed Ben's suspicions. Whatever the divergence was offering, it wasn't benevolent coexistence. I think I've heard enough, Ben said, his hybrid form charging with energy as he prepared to depart. Tell your people this, Earth is protected. This dimension is protected. Find another solution to your housing problem. The divergence being's form became less stable, its attempts at appearing humanoid abandoned as its true alien nature emerged more fully. You cannot stop what has already begun, Ben Tennyson. The barriers weaken with each transformation you make. Even this conversation accelerates the process. Then I'll find a way to strengthen them, Ben replied firmly. Impossible. The trajectory is set. The being began retreating toward the dimensional tear. We have existed between realities for eons, waiting patiently. We can wait longer if necessary, but your actions have created an opportunity that will not be wasted. The tear began to close as the divergence observer withdrew. Consider our offer of symbiosis, Ben Tennyson. The alternatives would be less accommodating to existing life forms. As the dimensional rift sealed completely, Ben remained hovering in space, processing the encounter. The divergence had confirmed his suspicions. They weren't interested in cooperation but in acquisition. Their talk of symbiosis thinly veiled their true intentions. He activated his communicator. Grandpa Max, come in. Reading you, Ben, Max's voice replied. How did it go with the continuum? About as expected. They're sticking to their position on the hybrid transformations. Ben paused before adding, and I just had a visitor from the divergence. What? Alarm filled Max's voice. Are you alright? Fine. It was just a scout or diplomat, called itself an observer. Tried to sell me on symbiotic coexistence, while practically admitting they've consumed other dimensions before. Ben, if the divergence can already send observers through, the situation may be more urgent than we realized. I know, Ben acknowledged. I'm heading to find the Unity next. After talking to all three factions, I'll have a better idea of what we're really dealing with. Be careful, Max cautioned. Each of these entities has its own agenda, and you're clearly central to all of them. Trust me, I've figured that out, Ben replied with grim humor. I'll check in after I find the Unity. He ended the transmission and accelerated toward Earth, his hybrid form streaking through space like a comet wrapped in temporal energy. As he re-entered the atmosphere, he noticed something strange. The entry caused more atmospheric disturbance than it should have, creating visible ripples in reality itself. The divergence was right about one thing: the barriers were indeed weakening, and his transformations were contributing to the process. Time was running out to find a solution. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in an abyssal trench rarely visited by surface dwellers, Ben searched for signs of the Unity. He had transformed into the same abyssal glider form he'd used during their first encounter, hoping the familiar appearance might facilitate communication. The crushing depths posed no challenge to his transformed physiology. Darkness was illuminated by his bioluminescent patterns, and his bioelectric sense mapped the underwater terrain with perfect precision. He followed the trench deeper, sensing unusual energy patterns ahead. As he rounded an underwater cliff, he found what he was seeking, a gathering of Unity beings, their transparent bodies pulsing with synchronized light patterns. They were arranged in a circular formation around what appeared to be a natural hydrothermal vent, but Ben's enhanced senses detected something unusual about the vent's energy output. The Nexus being returns, the familiar telepathic voice of the Unity resonated in Ben's mind as they detected his approach. Your consciousness evolves rapidly. The integration progresses well. I've come to talk, Ben replied, maintaining a respectful distance from their circle. After speaking with the Continuum and the Divergence, I need to hear your perspective again. The Unity beings pulsed with increased luminescence, clearly interested in this development. You have communed with the Separators and the Invaders. Enlightening experiences, we trust. Enlightening enough to know everyone's working an angle, Ben replied candidly. The Continuum wants the dimensional barriers reinforced. The Divergence wants them weakened so they can move in. What's your real goal in all this? The Unity beings shifted, their circular formation opening to allow Ben access to their center. Join our communion. Understanding flows better through connection than through separation. Ben hesitated, remembering Azmatha's warnings about telepathic contact with alien consciousnesses in his current state. But he needed answers, and the Unity seemed willing to provide them in their own way. Cautiously, he entered their circle. The moment he did, the Unity beings extended tendrils of energy that gently touched his transformed body. Ben felt an immediate shift in his perception, not an invasion of his mind, but an expansion. Suddenly he could sense the Unity's collective consciousness, a vast network of interconnected thoughts and experiences. We seek neither rigid separation nor invasive consumption, the Unity communicated, their thoughts flowing directly into Ben's expanded awareness. We seek transcendent connection, the natural evolution of consciousness beyond physical limitation. Through the connection, Ben perceived the Unity's perspective more clearly. They truly believed that consciousness naturally evolved toward greater connection, that the barriers between individual minds were artificial constructs that limited potential. The Divergence seeks to consume and control, the Unity continued. The Continuum seeks to isolate and constrain. Both paths lead to stagnation. Only through willing merger, the free choice to connect while maintaining core identity, can consciousness truly evolve. But the hybrid transformations are weakening the dimensional barriers, Ben pointed out. Potentially letting the Divergence invade. Yes. An unavoidable stage in the greater process. The Unity's collective thoughts carried absolute conviction. The barriers must thin before they can be reconstructed in more beneficial patterns. Like breaking a bone that has healed incorrectly to allow proper restoration. Ben wasn't convinced. And the suffering that causes? The beings who can't handle the transition. The Continuum showed me victims of identity dissolution. Transition requires adaptation. Adaptation causes temporary discomfort. The Unity's response was compassionate but unyielding. The Continuum preserves these beings in their suffering rather than helping them complete the transition to unified consciousness. Their pain is prolonged by the very separation meant to protect them. Through the telepathic connection, Ben perceived genuine belief behind these words. The Unity truly saw forced separation as crueler than guided merger. And the Divergence? Ben pressed. If the barriers weaken enough for them to enter our dimension fully, what then? They will attempt dominance through consumption, the Unity acknowledged. This is why consciousness must merge voluntarily before they arrive, to create a collective entity capable of resisting their intrusion while offering them an alternative path. Merger as defense, Ben summarized. Unite or be conquered. Unity through necessity leads to unity through understanding, the Unity confirmed. Even the Divergence could eventually be brought into harmonious connection rather than parasitic consumption. Ben carefully extracted himself from the Unity's telepathic field, needing to process their perspective without direct influence. Your goals may be noble from your perspective, but forcing consciousness merger on beings who aren't ready could destroy them. The Omnitrix demonstrates another path, the Unity countered. Through your transformations, you experience connection without loss of core identity. You maintain your Ben-ness while incorporating alien perspectives. This is the model we seek to implement universally. Except I chose to use the Omnitrix, Ben pointed out. And I have Asmith's failsafes and safeguards built in. You're proposing something much more drastic for beings who haven't chosen it. Choice is ideal, the Unity acknowledged. But the Divergence will not offer choice. They approach regardless. The barrier's thin with or without your assistance. We offer the only viable alternative to consumption. Ben studied the Unity beings, noting the absolute conviction in their synchronized energy patterns. Like the Continuum and Divergence, they truly believed their approach was the only correct solution. And like the others, they were willing to accept significant, collateral damage to achieve their goals. There has to be another way, Ben insisted. One that doesn't sacrifice individual autonomy or enable dimensional invasion. If such a path exists, you are uniquely positioned to discover it, the Unity replied. The Catalyst chose you for this purpose, to find the balance point between connection and separation, between unity and diversity. The Catalyst, Ben latched onto the mention. What do you know about it? The Unity beings pulsed with complex energy patterns, communicating among themselves before responding. The Catalyst exists to accelerate evolution at critical junctures. It identifies Nexus beings across dimensions and removes artificial limitations that prevent necessary growth. But what is it? Where does it come from? Beyond our understanding, the Unity admitted. Some believe it is the universe itself, acting through agents to direct its own evolution. Others see it as a transcended consciousness that has moved beyond dimensional constraints entirely. We know only that its interventions, while often disruptive initially, ultimately serve greater cosmic balance. Ben wasn't entirely satisfied with this explanation, but it aligned with what he'd learned from the other factions. The Catalyst seemed to stand apart from the cosmic conflict, pursuing its own agenda of evolution and change. I need to think about everything I've learned, Ben finally said. But know this, I won't support any plan that forces beings into unity against their will, even to protect them from the Divergence. Your perspective is valued, Nexus being, the Unity responded. But remember, the barriers continue to thin. Time for contemplation grows short. The Divergence gathers its forces. A decision must come soon. As if to emphasize their point, a subtle vibration passed through the water, a ripple in reality itself that Ben's transformed senses detected clearly. The dimensional barriers were weakening even as they spoke. I need to go, Ben declared, already moving away from the Unity circle. Whatever solution exists, it won't be found sitting at the bottom of the ocean. We will await your decision, the Unity's telepathic voice followed him as he swam upward. But be warned, others may not be as patient. The Divergence grows bolder, and the Continuum more desperate. Earth stands at the center of forces beyond your full comprehension. Ben accelerated toward the surface, processing everything he'd learned from the three cosmic factions. Each believed their approach was the only viable solution to the crisis. Each saw the others as fundamentally misguided. And each wanted to use Ben and the Omnitrix to further their agenda. But one thing had become increasingly clear, none of them had the complete answer. The true solution, if one existed, would have to incorporate elements from all three perspectives while rejecting their extremes. As he neared the surface, his communicator activated with an urgent signal. Ben! Come in, Ben! Gwen's voice carried unmistakable alarm. I'm here, he replied, breaking the surface of the Pacific Ocean. What's wrong? Everything, Gwen answered grimly. The Divergence has made its move. Dimensional rifts are opening all over the planet. We need you back at headquarters now. Ben transformed immediately, shifting to his chronovolt hybrid form and accelerating toward Plumber headquarters at speeds that bent time around him. As he flew over land masses, he could see what had Gwen so concerned. Shimmering tears in reality were appearing randomly across the landscape, each one a potential entry point for the divergence. The cosmic confrontation he'd been preparing for had arrived sooner than expected. The weight of worlds now rested squarely on his shoulders, and time had run out for careful deliberation. He pushed his hybrid form to its limits, streaking across the sky like a bolt of temporal lightning. Whatever happened next would determine not just Earth's fate, but potentially the future of consciousness across multiple dimensions. The unity, the continuum, the divergence, all had made their positions clear. Now it was time for Ben Tennyson to make his. Chapter 3, Beyond Limitation. The sky above Bellwood tore open like fabric ripping at the seams. Not just one tier, dozens of them, shimmering gray rifts exposing the void between dimensions. From each rift, shadowy tendrils extended, probing the air as if testing its composition. Citizens ran screaming as reality itself seemed to fracture around them. Ben shot through the clouds at hypersonic speed, his chronovolt form trailing temporal energy as he surveyed the chaos below. The situation was worse than he'd imagined. Dimensional breaches weren't just appearing in Bellwood, his enhanced perception detected similar rifts forming worldwide. He landed at Plummer headquarters, transforming back to human form as he rushed into the command center. The scene inside was controlled chaos, agents coordinating emergency responses while monitoring. Screens displayed breach sites around the globe. Ben. Grandpa Max spotted him immediately. Thank goodness. The situation's deteriorating by the minute. Gwen, Kevin, and Rook huddled around the central holographic display, analyzing data with increasingly grim expressions. Azimuth stood on the console, frantically working multiple screens simultaneously. The divergence isn't waiting for an invitation, Ben observed, joining them at the display. What's our status? Critical, Rook reported. Dimensional rifts are appearing at an exponential rate. We've recorded 327 breaches in the last 17 minutes. And they're getting bigger, Gwen added, pointing to real-time measurements. The early rifts were inches across. The newest ones are nearly 6 feet wide, large enough for full divergence entry. We've got reports of unknown entities emerging from rifts in 17 locations, Max continued, pulling up footage from Paris showing shadowy, multi-jointed figures moving through stunned crowds. No hostile actions yet, but people are panicking. Observers, Ben identified immediately. Scout units. They're testing our reality before the main invasion. How do you know that? Kevin asked. I met one in orbit, Ben replied grimly. They're just the first wave. Azimuth looked up from his work, eyes narrowing. You encountered a divergence entity and didn't report it immediately. Been busy talking to cosmic factions that all want to use me for their own agenda, Ben shot back. The unity, the continuum, and now the divergence, they all have different plans for fixing the dimensional crisis, and none of them care about collateral damage. What about the catalyst? Gwen asked. The entity that started all this by unlocking all your transformations. Where does it stand? Good question, Ben replied, turning to Azimuth. Any progress tracking it? The Galvan shook his head. The catalyst leaves virtually no energy signature. It seems to exist partially outside our dimensional framework, appearing only when it chooses to be detected. A sudden alarm blared through the command center. One of the monitors showed a massive energy surge in downtown Bellwood. Central breach expanding rapidly, a Plummer technician reported. Energy readings off the charts. On screen, the largest dimensional rift yet tore open above Bellwood Park, a yawning gray void nearly 30 feet across. Unlike the smaller breaches, this one pulsed with purpose, a deliberate incursion rather than random weakening. That's not random deterioration, Ben realized. They're forcing their way through. Ben, Azimuth's tone was uncharacteristically urgent. The dimensional barriers are failing faster than anticipated. The hybrid transformations have weakened the fabric of reality beyond critical threshold. So it's my fault? Ben challenged. No, Azimuth surprised him by saying. The catalyst's modification simply accelerated an inevitable process. The Omnitrix was always capable of this effect, it would merely have taken decades rather than weeks. A new alert sounded as another monitor activated automatically. The screen showed the Atlantic Ocean churning unnaturally, massive whirlpools forming as energy patterns rippled across the surface. The Unity is mobilizing, Ben recognized the patterns immediately. They're surfacing. And look, Rook pointed to orbital scans. The Continuum fleet is breaking formation, moving into lower Earth orbit. Ben took a deep breath, absorbing the situation. Everyone's making their move. The divergence is forcing entry through the weakened barriers. The Continuum is probably planning to reinforce those same barriers, regardless of what that does to Earth. And the Unity. He paused, considering. They'll attempt to initiate forced consciousness merging to create a unified defense. 3 cosmic forces converging on Earth, Grandpa Max summarized grimly. And all of them see you and the Omnitrix as the key to their plans. Then I need to give them something they don't expect. Ben decided, moving toward the exit. I'm heading to the central breach. That's where the Divergence leadership will emerge. I'm coming with you, Gwen insisted, energy already glowing around her hands. We all are, Kevin added, absorbing metal from a nearby console. Cosmic forces or not, nobody invades our planet without a fight. Ben shook his head. No. The smaller breaches need containment too. Civilians need protection and evacuation. I need you guys coordinating that effort. Ben, Grandpa Max placed a hand on his shoulder. You can't face 3 cosmic forces alone. I'm not alone, Ben replied, tapping his temple. I've got a million different perspectives in here now, remember? And I think I finally understand why the catalyst unlocked them all. Azimuth looked up sharply. You've developed a theory? More than a theory, Ben replied. A solution. But I need to get to that central breach now. Whatever you're planning, Azimuth warned, remember that the dimensional barriers are already critically weakened. Any further disruption could cause catastrophic collapse across multiple realities. Understood, Ben nodded, activating the Omnitrix. But sometimes you need to break things down completely before you can rebuild them properly. Before anyone could object further, he transformed into a hybrid form combining XLR-8 speed with Gravitax gravity manipulation and Big Chill's phasing ability, a combination he'd mentally dubbed Phantom Weight. Coordinate the global response, he instructed as his transformed voice echoed with unusual resonance. I'll handle the central breach. With that, he phased through the ceiling, accelerating toward downtown Bellwood at speeds that distorted gravity around him. Buildings blurred past as he moved, his hybrid mind processing multiple strategies simultaneously. The central breach dominated the sky above Bellwood Park, pulsing with ominous energy as it steadily expanded. Citizens fled in terror while plumber agents attempted to establish a perimeter. Smaller rifts dotted the surrounding area, each one spilling shadowy divergence observers into our reality. Ben halted at the edge of the park, assessing the situation. The central breach now stretched nearly 50 feet across, its edges crackling with dimensional energy. Beyond it, in the gray void between realities, massive shapes moved, the main divergence force preparing to enter. Everybody back. Ben shouted to the plumber agents. Minimum safe distance half a mile. This is about to get complicated. As the agents began widening the perimeter, Ben noticed movement from above. The Continuum biomechanical ships descended through the clouds, their hulls pulsing with energy as they positioned themselves around the breach. Simultaneously, the ground beneath the park bubbled and churned as dozens of Unity beings emerged from underground water systems, their transparent forms glowing with increased intensity. All 3 cosmic forces converging on a single point, exactly as Ben had anticipated. The largest Continuum vessel projected a communication directly into Ben's mind, Ben Tennyson. The dimensional collapse has begun. We must implement emergency containment protocols immediately. Before Ben could respond, the Unity's collective telepathic voice joined in, desperate measures by the separators will fail. Only unified consciousness can withstand the divergence invasion. The merging must begin now. The central breach pulsed violently, expanding another 20 feet as a massive form began emerging, a divergence entity far larger than the observers, its body shifting between multiple possible configurations as it adjusted to our dimensional laws. Too late for your petty disagreements, the divergence entity communicated, its telepathic voice overwhelming in its intensity. The barriers fail. We claim this reality as necessary expansion territory. Ben stood firm as the three cosmic forces positioned themselves for conflict, each preparing to implement their solution regardless of the consequences to Earth or its inhabitants. Enough! Ben shouted, his hybrid form pulsing with gravitational energy that momentarily distorted space around him. This ends now. All three factions paused, their attention focusing on Ben, exactly as he'd intended. I've heard all your arguments, Ben continued, his transformed voice carrying unusual authority. The Continuum wants to reinforce barriers that were always meant to be permeable. The Unity wants to force consciousness merger without consent. And the Divergence wants to consume our reality because they destroyed their own. He tapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. None of you have the complete answer. But together, along with what the catalyst showed me, I think I do. The divergence entity extended further into our reality, its form stabilizing into something vaguely insectoid but with too many limbs and sensory organs arranged in disturbing asymmetry. Your understanding is irrelevant, it declared. The process has begun. This reality will be repurposed. That's where you're wrong, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix's holographic interface. The process began when the catalyst unlocked all alien forms, but the endpoint isn't what any of you expect. The interface displayed a complex DNA recombination sequence that Ben had been developing mentally over the past hours, drawing on insights from all million alien perspectives now integrated into his consciousness. What are you attempting? The Continuum demanded, sensing the enormous energy building within the Omnitrix. Something that's never been tried before, Ben replied. A transformation that incorporates elements from all sentient species simultaneously, a unified diversity form. Impossible, the Unity's collective voice registered shock. No single vessel could contain such complexity. Watch me, Ben challenged, slamming his hand down on the Omnitrix. The transformation that followed was unlike any before. The green flash expanded outward, enveloping not just Ben but the entire park in blinding energy. When it faded, where Ben had stood now hovered a being that defied simple description. Its form shifted continuously, flowing between countless possible configurations while somehow maintaining a coherent center. Galaxies spiraled within its semi-transparent body, and energy patterns reminiscent of DNA helixes coursed through its structure. Its face was an ever-changing mosaic of features from thousands of species, yet with Ben's green eyes somehow remaining constant at its core. When it spoke, the voice contained multitudes, as if millions of beings spoke in perfect harmony while Ben's voice remained the central thread. I am unity through diversity, they announced. All transformations, all perspectives, all possibilities, unified without losing their distinct qualities. The divergence entity recoiled, clearly unprepared for this development. What have you done? What the catalyst intended all along, they replied, their voice resonating across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Created a bridge between separation and merger, a demonstration that connection doesn't require the loss of individuality. The form rose higher, energy radiating outward in complex patterns. Every alien in the Omnitrix's database contributed to this transformation, not merged into homogeneity but harmonized into something greater than their sum. The Unity beings pulsed with excitement, the evolution we sought. But different, more complete than we envisioned. A dangerous abomination, the Continuum countered. The barriers weaken further with each moment this form exists. Agreed, the divergence leader hissed. This mutation threatens our claims. It must be eliminated. The divergence entity fully emerged from the central breach, revealing its true massive scale, nearly 100 feet tall, with dozens of limbs and a body that warped reality around it. It struck at Ben/they with appendages that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ben/they didn't evade. Instead, they reached out with countless energy tendrils, each one resonating with different alien abilities. Where the divergence entity touched these tendrils, its form began to stabilize, forced to conform to a single-dimensional reality. "What are you doing?" the divergence leader demanded, struggling against the effect. "Release us." "I'm not containing you," Ben/they explained. "I'm helping you manifest properly in this dimension without destructive consequences. Your people have been caught between realities for so long you've forgotten how to exist in just one." The divergence entity fought against the stabilizing effect, but Ben/they maintained the connection, drawing on the combined knowledge of millions of species to reshape the interaction between dimensions. Simultaneously, they extended different energy patterns toward the unity and continuum, creating bridges between the opposing cosmic forces. "You're both partially right," Ben/they told them. "Consciousness naturally seeks connection and separation. The ebb and flow between individuality and unity is what drives evolution. Neither extreme is the answer." The central breach pulsed ominously, expanding further as the dimensional barriers continued to weaken. The sky above Bellwood now resembled a shattered mirror, with reality itself fracturing along multiple fault lines. "The separation matrix fails completely," the continuum warned. "Catastrophic dimensional collapse imminent." "Good," Ben/they replied, surprising everyone. The old barriers were flawed, too rigid, too absolute. They need to be replaced. With that declaration, Ben/they began to expand their form, growing to match the divergence entity's massive scale. The millions of alien consciousnesses within them worked in perfect harmony, each contributing unique insights to a unified purpose. "This is what the catalyst intended," Ben/they explained as their form continued growing. "Not to destroy the barriers, but to evolve them. Not to force unity or enforce separation, but to create permeable boundaries that allow connection without loss of identity." Energy surged through Ben/they's expanded form, radiating outward in complex patterns that intersected with the dimensional rifts. But instead of closing the rifts forcibly, the energy transformed them, changing their fundamental nature from jagged tiers to stabilized conduits. "What are you doing?" the divergence leader demanded, its massive form now fully constrained to a single-dimensional state. "Creating doorways instead of breaks," Ben/they answered. "Paths between dimensions that can be traveled safely, without destruction or invasion." The transformed rifts began to pulse with organized energy, their chaotic edges resolving into structured portals. Through them, glimpses of other dimensions became visible, not just the divergence's gray void, but countless other realities existing alongside their own. The continuum ships adjusted their position, clearly confused by this development. "This is not reinforcement of barriers. This is controlled permeability." "Exactly," Ben/they confirmed. "The old model of absolute separation was always destined to fail. Dimensions need to breathe, to exchange energy and information while maintaining their distinct identities." The unity beings moved closer, their collective consciousness probing the transformed rifts with cautious curiosity. Connection without forced merger. Individual identity maintained within a greater network. "This was not our understanding of evolution's path." "Because you saw only part of the picture," Ben/they explained, their form still radiating energy that continued transforming the dimensional landscape. "True unity preserves diversity. True connection respects boundaries." The divergence leader's massive form had fully stabilized now, constrained to a single-dimensional state for the first time in eons. It regarded Ben/they with complex sensory organs that conveyed both hostility and reluctant fascination. These doorways, it communicated. They would allow passage between dimensions. Controlled passage, Ben/they clarified. Regulated exchange. No more invasions, no more consumption of entire realities. But also no more exile between dimensions. Your people can find homes across the multiverse without destroying existing life. Unacceptable limitations, the Divergence leader rejected. We require complete integration rights. You require stability, Ben/they countered. Your people have been fractured across dimensional boundaries for so long you've forgotten what it means to exist wholly in one place. That's why you consume realities, trying to fill the void within yourselves. Ben/they extended their energy further, surrounding the Divergence leader completely. I can help you remember. All million alien perspectives within me include species that have faced similar crises: dimensional displacement, consciousness fragmentation, identity dissolution. Their combined knowledge offers a path forward. The Divergence leader struggled briefly against Ben/they's enveloping energy, but slowly, its resistance faded as something unexpected happened. Its form began to stabilize further, becoming more coherent, less chaotic. The pain of partial existence, a condition so constant the Divergence had forgotten it was pain, began to ease. This sensation, the leader communicated, genuine surprise evident in its telepathic voice. Wholeness. Completeness within boundaries. We had forgotten. This is what you've been seeking, Ben/they confirmed. Not consumption of other realities, but restoration of your own dimensional integrity. The new network of connected but separate dimensions can provide that stability without requiring you to displace other beings. The transformed rifts throughout Bellwood and around the world continued to stabilize, shifting from chaotic tiers to organized conduits. Plumber agents reported that the Divergence observers were no longer emerging. Instead, many were returning to the rifts, apparently responding to some unseen command. The Continuum ships adjusted their position again, their biomechanical structures pulsing with what might have been uncertainty. This solution is unprecedented. The separation matrix is being fundamentally restructured rather than reinforced or dissolved. Because both your approaches were too extreme, Ben/they replied. The universe doesn't work in absolutes. It thrives on balance, the dynamic tension between opposing forces. The Unity beings moved into a formation around Ben/they, their collective consciousness probing the new dimensional structure with increasing approval. We perceive the pattern now. Not forced merger, but voluntary connection. Not unity that erases diversity, but unity that celebrates it. Exactly, Ben/they confirmed. The catalyst showed me this possibility by unlocking all transformations. Each alien form is distinct, unique, valuable in its own right. But together, connected through the Omnitrix and my consciousness, they create something greater than their sum without losing their individual qualities. The dimensional restructuring continued to spread globally, the transformed rift stabilizing into a network that connected Earth to multiple dimensions without endangering any of them. The Divergence leader, now fully stabilized in a single-dimensional state, regarded Ben/they with newfound respect. Your solution offers possibility, it acknowledged reluctantly. Our people have sought wholeness for eons. If these structured pathways can provide dimensional stability without conquest, they can, Ben/they assured. But it requires accepting limitations, recognizing that all beings deserve their own space, their own reality, their own path of development. The Divergence leader seemed to consider this deeply, its massive form shifting slightly as if in internal debate. Finally, it responded, "We will explore this alternative. The pain of fragmented existence has driven us for too long. Perhaps wholeness need not come at others' expense." Ben/they nodded, their multifaceted form pulsing with approval. Then they turned toward the Continuum ships. Your role remains crucial. These dimensional pathways require maintenance, guardians who ensure the boundaries remain permeable but protected. A significant deviation from our historical purpose, the Continuum replied. We have always reinforced separation. Because that was necessary when the alternative was chaos, Ben/they acknowledged. But evolution demands adaptation. Become facilitators of healthy connection rather than enforcers of absolute division. The continuum ships conferred among themselves, their energy patterns shifting in complex sequences. Finally, they responded, "Your solution merits implementation. We will adapt our protocols. Monitor rather than restrict. Guide rather than control." They turned finally to the Unity beings, who had been observing the exchanges with evident fascination. "And you must accept that forced consciousness merger is not evolution but assimilation. True unity preserves individual identity within the greater whole." A challenging reconception, the Unity admitted. "But your form demonstrates the possibility. Millions of consciousnesses connected yet distinct. We will reconsider our approach." With all three cosmic forces tentatively accepting the new paradigm, they began the final phase of the dimensional restructuring. Their form expanded further, encompassing the entire park as energy radiated outward in complex, geometric patterns. "The new framework requires anchoring," they explained. "A nexus point that stabilizes the entire network." "You propose to serve as this nexus?" the continuum asked. "A single consciousness cannot sustain such responsibility." "Not permanently," they agreed. "And not alone." At that moment, a new presence manifested, a swirling energy form that coalesced beside they. The catalyst had returned, its luminous body pulsing with apparent approval. "Right on time," they greeted it. "You knew this was coming, didn't you? This was your plan all along." The catalyst's form shifted, taking on a more defined shape that resembled an idealized synthesis of countless species, similar to they's current form but more stable, more permanent. The potential required unlocking, the catalyst spoke, its voice resonating across multiple levels of reality simultaneously. "You have exceeded expectations, Ben Tennyson. You could have just told me what you wanted," they remarked with a hint of Ben's characteristic humor breaking through the cosmic voice. "Understanding earned through experience surpasses knowledge simply granted," the catalyst replied. "Your unique perspective, human yet connected to millions of alien consciousnesses, was essential to finding the balance point that eluded these ancient forces." The catalyst turned its attention to the three cosmic factions. "The cycle continues, but evolves. Separation and unity, diversity and harmony, no longer in conflict but in dynamic balance." The divergence leader regarded the catalyst with obvious recognition. We believed you destroyed in the collapse of our home dimension." "I cannot be destroyed," the catalyst replied simply. "I am evolution itself, the impulse toward greater complexity and connection that drives all reality. I appear where needed, when needed, in forms appropriate to the situation." It turned back to they. "The nexus is stabilizing, but requires a final key. The Omnitrix must evolve as well, from a tool of transformation to a conduit between dimensions." They looked down at the Omnitrix symbol embedded within their multifaceted form. "You want to permanently modify it? Asmatha's going to love that." "The Galvan genius built better than he knew," the catalyst observed. "The device's true potential was always greater than preservation or transformation. It is a bridge between consciousnesses, between ways of being, a microcosm of the larger dimensional network we now establish." They considered this, consulting the million perspectives integrated within their consciousness. The consensus was clear: this evolution of the Omnitrix represented not an ending but a new beginning, an expansion of possibilities rather than a limitation. "I'm ready," they decided. "What do I need to do?" "Simply allow it," the catalyst instructed, extending a tendril of energy toward the Omnitrix symbol. "The potential already exists within. I merely activate what was always there." As the catalyst's energy connected with the Omnitrix, the symbol began to change, its familiar green hourglass pattern expanding and becoming more complex, incorporating elements that seemed to exist partially beyond three-dimensional space. Power surged through they's multifaceted form, not painful but overwhelming in its intensity. The million alien consciousnesses responded in perfect harmony, each contributing to the transformation taking place. The dimensional rifts around the world pulsed in synchronization with the Omnitrix, the entire network becoming linked through this single nexus point. For a moment, Ben perceived reality from an entirely new perspective, not just 3 dimensions or 4, but a complex multidimensional framework where all possibilities existed simultaneously. When the surge subsided, they remained hovering above Bellwood Park, their form now more stable, more defined, yet still encompassing the million alien perspectives in perfect balance. The Omnitrix symbol had transformed into something new, still recognizably the same device, but evolved. Its interface displayed capabilities that hadn't existed before, including direct connections to the dimensional network now stabilizing around the planet. "It is done," the Catalyst announced, withdrawing its energy. "The nexus is established. The network is stable. Dimensions remain separate yet connected through controlled pathways." The Divergence leader, still fully manifested in Earth's reality, studied the transformed rifts with its complex sensory organs. "These pathways, they lead to multiple realities, not just our void space. To every dimension connected to the network," the Catalyst confirmed. "Your people need no longer exist between realities. You may find homes across the multiverse, establishing limited colonies in dimensions with compatible conditions, provided you respect the autonomy of native life forms. A significant adjustment to our intended expansion," the Divergence leader noted, "but without its previous hostility. Yet, the promise of dimensional stability after eons of fragmented existence, this merits consideration." "More than consideration," they stated firmly. "It's the condition for your continued access to the network. Attempt to consume or conquer any reality, and the pathways will close to your people permanently." The massive entity seemed to consider this ultimatum before responding, "Agreed. We will adapt our approach. Coexistence rather than consumption. Integration rather than invasion." With the immediate crisis resolved, they began the process of returning to human form. The million alien consciousnesses within them gradually separated, maintaining their connections while resuming their distinct identities within the Omnitrix's transformed database. The green flash enveloped They's massive form, contracting rapidly until only Ben remained, standing on the ground in human form, though the Omnitrix on his wrist retained its evolved appearance. The 3 cosmic forces remained positioned around the park, observing Ben with new perspective. "The Nexus being returns to limited form," the Unity observed, "yet maintains connection to the greater network." "That's the whole point," Ben replied, his voice now fully his own again. "I'm still me, still human, but connected to something larger without being consumed by it." The Catalyst approached Ben, its form condensing to roughly human scale. "You have surpassed expectations, Ben Tennyson. Few beings could have integrated 1,000,000 consciousnesses while maintaining their core identity." "I had help," Ben acknowledged, looking at the evolved Omnitrix. "The transformation process trained me for this. Each alien form I've ever used left echoes, prepared my mind to handle multiple perspectives simultaneously. A progressive adaptation by design," the Catalyst confirmed. "The Omnitrix's function was always leading toward this outcome, though neither you nor its creator fully understood its evolutionary trajectory." Ben felt exhaustion setting in as the adrenaline faded. Maintaining the unified diversity form had required tremendous mental energy, even with the Omnitrix handling most of the complexity. "What happens now?" he asked, looking at the transformed rift still visible throughout the sky, no longer chaotic tiers but structured portals pulsing with controlled energy. "Balance," the Catalyst replied. "The dimensional network will stabilize over time, with the 3 cosmic forces serving complementary roles in its maintenance." It gestured toward the continuum ships. "They will monitor boundaries, ensuring no single dimension infringes upon another. Then to the Unity beings, they will facilitate communication and cooperation between willing consciousnesses across the network. Finally, to the Divergence leader, and they will help rehabilitate dimensional refugees, finding appropriate homes without disrupting existing life." "And me?" Ben asked. "What's my role in all this?" "Nexus," the Catalyst stated simply. Through the evolved Omnitrix, you maintain Earth's connection to the network while demonstrating the possibility of unity through diversity rather than at diversity's expense. The catalyst's form began to fade, becoming less substantial as it prepared to depart. Your transformation abilities have also evolved. The million aliens remain accessible, but now with greater stability and purpose. The hybrid forms will no longer weaken dimensional barriers but rather strengthen the new network with each use. That's convenient, Ben remarked with a tired smile. Not convenience. Evolution, the catalyst corrected. The universe adapts. Obstacles become opportunities. Limitations become launching points for growth. As the catalyst faded further, Ben had one last question: will I see you again? When evolution requires a catalyst, I appear, came the enigmatic reply as the entity disappeared completely. But the greatest catalysts for change have always been beings like you, Ben Tennyson, those who stand at the intersection of multiple worlds and choose connection over division, growth over stagnation. With the catalyst gone, Ben turned his attention back to the three cosmic forces still positioned around Bellwood Park. The crisis had been averted, but the implementation of the new dimensional paradigm had just begun. I suggest you three start figuring out how to work together, he told them. The network needs all your perspectives to function properly. The continuum ships began ascending, their biomechanical structures pulsing with new energy patterns. We will adapt our protocols. Monitor the pathways between dimensions. Ensure boundaries remain permeable yet protected. The Unity beings began returning to the water, their transparent forms glowing with subdued luminescence. We will facilitate communication between willing consciousnesses. Guide connection that preserves individual identity within greater harmony. The Divergence leader, still massive but now fully stabilized in Earth's dimension, began moving toward the central portal. We will reconsider our approach to expansion. Explore coexistence rather than consumption. Perhaps, there is wisdom in boundaries after all. As the three forces departed to their respective domains, Ben took a moment to examine the evolved Omnitrix more carefully. Its interface had transformed significantly, displaying new functions and capabilities he would need time to explore fully. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled his attention away from the device. Gwen, Kevin, Rook, and Grandpa Max rushed into the park, having clearly witnessed the cosmic confrontation from a safer distance. Ben! Gwen called, reaching him first. What happened? The dimensional rifts are different now. Long story, Ben replied with a tired smile. Basically, I got three cosmic forces to compromise, helped restructure the boundaries between dimensions, and evolved the Omnitrix into a nexus point for a multiversal network. Just another Tuesday for Ben Tennyson, Kevin remarked, though his expression showed genuine impressed respect. Your transformation was. Rook searched for words, unlike anything recorded in Plummer history. You appeared to manifest aspects of countless species simultaneously. Unity through diversity, Ben confirmed. All million alien forms working in harmony without losing their distinct qualities. It was incredible. Overwhelming but incredible. Grandpa Max studied the evolved Omnitrix with concern. And now? The device has clearly changed. Evolved, Ben corrected. It still transforms me into aliens, but it also helps maintain Earth's connection to the dimensional network. The hybrid forms don't weaken reality anymore, they strengthen the new connections. And you? Gwen asked perceptively. How are you handling the alien consciousness integration now? Ben considered this, taking inventory of his mental state. The million alien perspectives remained present in his awareness, but differently than before. No longer competing for attention or influencing him unconsciously, they had settled into an organized framework, accessible when needed but not intrusive. I'm still me, he assured her. Just more. Like I've gained a million new perspectives without losing my human one. It's actually easier to handle now that there's structure to it. Azimuth teleported in, materializing on a nearby bench. The Galvan inventor studied the evolved Omnitrix from a distance, his expression a mix of scientific fascination and creator's pride. "You've surpassed my design parameters, Ben Tennyson," he observed. "The Omnitrix was never intended to serve as a dimensional nexus. But you built it with the potential to evolve that way," Ben pointed out. "Maybe unconsciously, but the capability was there." "Perhaps," Azimuth acknowledged. "All great inventions exceed their creator's intentions eventually. Though I would have appreciated consultation before such fundamental modifications were implemented." "Blame the catalyst," Ben suggested with a grin. "It had this planned all along." Azimuth hopped down from the bench, approaching to examine the evolved Omnitrix more closely. "The transformation matrix has been completely restructured. The DNA samples remain intact but are now organized in a dimensional framework rather than a linear database. Makes the hybrid forms more stable," Ben explained. "And gives me better control over which traits combine." "Fascinating," Azimuth murmured, his scientific curiosity temporarily overriding any concern about unauthorized modifications. "The implications for cross-species genetic research alone are revolutionary." As Azimuth continued his examination, Ben looked upward at the transformed dimensional rifts still visible in the sky above Bellwood. They pulsed with organized energy, no longer tiers in reality but structured connections between worlds, doorways rather than breaks. "So what happens now?" Kevin asked, following Ben's gaze. "We've got portals to other dimensions all over the planet. That seems like a security issue." "They'll stabilize further," Ben explained, drawing on knowledge from his recent unified form. "Most will become dormant, invisible unless activated. A few will remain as active connection points, monitored by the continuum and regulated through the dimensional network." "And the divergence?" Grandpa Max asked. "Can they be trusted to honor this new arrangement?" "They've been given something they've wanted for eons, dimensional stability," Ben replied. "Following the rules of the network is their best chance at ending their existence as refugees. I think they'll comply, at least for now." "And if they don't?" Rook pressed. Ben looked at the evolved Omnitrix. "Then they'll find out what a million aliens working together can really do." 1 month later, Ben stood atop Mount Rushmore, watching the sunrise from the hidden Plummer base. The past weeks had seen remarkable changes as Earth adjusted to its new role as a nexus point in the dimensional network. Most of the rifts had indeed become dormant as predicted, invisible to normal perception though still accessible when needed. A few remained active as official connection points, now carefully monitored by joint Plummer Continuum security teams. The divergence had begun limited settlement in several uninhabited dimensions connected to the network, with strict oversight from both the Continuum and Unity forces. So far, they had honored the non-aggression agreements, perhaps recognizing that dimensional stability offered more than conquest ever could. The Unity had established communication protocols between willing consciousnesses across multiple dimensions, facilitating exchange without forcing merger. Their approach had evolved significantly, now respecting individual autonomy while still promoting greater connection. And the Omnitrix had continued to evolve, its capabilities expanding as Ben explored the new dimensional framework. The hybrid transformations had become his specialty, strategic combinations of alien forms that leveraged their complementary abilities while maintaining stable dimensional resonance. "Penny for your thoughts?" Gwen asked, joining him at the overlook. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Ben replied. "A couple months ago, I was just Ben 10 with my regular roster of aliens. Now I'm a dimensional nexus point with access to 1,000,000 transformations and hybrid combinations. And handling it better than anyone expected," Gwen observed. Even Azimuth seems impressed, though he'd never admit it outright. Ben smiled, looking down at the evolved Omnitrix. Its interface glowed with steady green light, the complex multidimensional patterns within the hourglass symbols shifting subtly as it maintained its connection to the network. "The alien perspectives helped," he acknowledged. "They're like advisors now. Still distinct, still separate from my core identity, but connected in ways that make me stronger rather than conflicted. Unity through diversity," Gwen quoted with a smile. Turns out you were the perfect test case for the catalyst's evolutionary experiment. Lucky me, Ben remarked dryly, though without real complaint. The responsibility was enormous, but so were the possibilities. His communicator beeped, a priority alert from Plumber headquarters. Ben activated it, projecting a holographic display of Rook's face. Ben, we have a situation in Dimension J27, his partner reported. The Continuum has detected unauthorized energy signatures consistent with divergence technology. Possible treaty violation. On my way, Ben replied, already activating the Omnitrix's dimensional locator function, another new capability of its evolved state. Want backup? Gwen offered. Ben shook his head. Dimensional travel is still tricky for non-Nexus beings. I can handle this one. He scrolled through alien options, considering possibilities. Maybe a hybrid of clockwork, feedback, and Diamond Head for this situation. Ben, Gwen said before he transformed, just remember, with a million options, sometimes the hardest part is knowing when to use which one. That's what makes it interesting, Ben grinned, selecting the combination. It's not about having all the power, it's about using the right power at the right time. The green flash enveloped him, transforming him into the hybrid form he'd envisioned, a crystalline being with chronon gears embedded throughout its structure and energy conductors extending from its arms and back. Chrono Crystal, he named it automatically. The hybrid consciousness supplying the designation. He opened a dimensional portal with a gesture, the evolved Omnitrix interfacing directly with the network to create a stable pathway to the target dimension. See you later, Ben called to Gwen as he stepped toward the portal. There are a million stories across the dimensions now, and apparently I'm involved in all of them. As he passed through the portal, Ben reflected on how far he'd come since that fateful day when the Catalyst had unlocked all million aliens. What had seemed overwhelming at first had become his greatest strength, not just the power of transformation, but the perspective gained from experiencing countless different ways of existing. Unity through diversity. Connection that preserved individuality rather than erasing it. Balance between opposing cosmic forces. These were the lessons hidden within the million transformations, lessons Ben Tennyson was uniquely positioned to demonstrate across the dimensional network. And he was just getting started. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.